First up, we have Saoirse Ronan and the awkward mistake. As a journalist, it's your job to get facts as correct as possible, but sometimes during certain circumstances, it's easy to get lost in the sauce. At the 2016 Oscars red carpet, an ABC News journalist was speaking to Saoirse when she had stopped to wave at someone, who happened to be writer Nick Hornby, who she had worked with for the film Brooklyn. She was nominated for Best Actress for her role in said film. The reporter confused the small interaction as something between family members and assumed Hornby was her father. When asked, Ronan obviously confirmed that he was the writer and not her father. It was a mild slip-up and not a big deal because, things like that happen. Honestly, this taught me to never assume and stick to my script or whatever to avoid any awkward run-ins like that. Next in line, we have Scarlett Johansson and Ryan Seacrest. Johansson was being interviewed at the 2017 Oscars red carpet when she was asked about her shoes. To clarify, Seacrest was asking if she had worn the heels she was wearing to the Oscars rehearsals that they have for the presenters. She responded with, "What a ridiculous question to ask," as it seemed to be so random for her. But Seacrest explained that he was asking because he had heard that fellow actress Halle Berry had done it. She accepted his response and continued to explain that she did not wear the heels, opting for comfortability. Up next is interviewer Jess Cagle calling Hidden Figures by the wrong name. It was around this time in 2017 when people were calling Hidden Figures Hidden Fences. The mistake started back at the Golden Globes when the movie Hidden Figures and Fences, very separate movies, were said in the same sentence, and that's how the mistake was made. The internet was already preparing themselves for reporters to make that same mistakes at the Oscars, and they were right. Editor-in-chief of People magazine, Jess Cagle messed it up when trying to compliment it as extraordinary alongside the film Moonlight, and was quick to correct himself, but it happened, and Twitter was there for it. Coming up is Tiffany Haddish's ultimate fangirl moment. So imagine you're at the Oscars and your idol is there. What do? Would you wait until they're within your closest vicinity, or do you seek them out? Tiffany Haddish was a woman on a mission as she wanted to greet Meryl Streep. In a video taken at the 90th Academy Awards, you can see Haddish waiting outside of the rope that was meant for the designated red carpet. With Streep just meters away, she probably contemplated her options before just going for it and climbing over the rope. I forgot to mention she was in a beautiful long gown as well, so to be able to witness that in real time must have been hilarious. Streep was seemingly preoccupied as Haddish steps in and literally blocks her path. The two make eye contact and they hug while exchanging words that are hard to make out. But nevertheless, Haddish got to have her chance with Streep and it was everything. I know some people would think this to be rude, which is why I included it, but hey, you do it too. Next on the list is Sacha Baron Cohen and his urn. Cohen arrived at the red carpet dressed head to toe in his costume for his character, Admiral General Aladdin. He arrived with staff personnel, 2 women who were obviously paid actors, and a cremation urn. Aside from his outfit, he was also completely in character too. That method acting really helping him out here. He was being interviewed by Ryan Seacrest, and Seacrest played into the bit as well. As he explained why he brought the urn, he inconspicuously lifted it and let it spill all over Seacrest. Clearly, it was a setup, probably some sort of marketing strategy from the movie's team. Up next again is Tiffany Haddish and her interview. She looked stunning in her custom-made green gown when a reporter asked if she had done a costume change. Perhaps slightly put off by the term costume, Haddish goes off to explain that it was not a costume but a luxury Dolce & Gabbana gown. The reality of the awkwardness sets in as the reporter tries to stealthily move on, but Haddish wants to reaffirm herself. She continues saying, "It's called an evening gown, darling." Watching the clip, you can tell the reporter regrets everything as she continues to play cool and admits defeat, but the damage was done and Haddish was not. She explained that the dress was paid by herself and that was what success looked like. Coming up is Zuri Hall blanking out at the red carpet. Like I said, the hustle and bustle of these types of events are the partial reasons why reporters tend to mess things up. And it's fine, we're all human here, which is why I think E! News reporter Zuri Hall can back me up on that statement. She arrived at the 2017 Oscars red carpet in a beautiful sheer and feathery dress. Perhaps it was so beautiful she ended up forgetting who actually designed it. Is it disrespectful to forget the name of the designer? I think it's an honest mistake, but that doesn't take away the minor embarrassment she probably felt while that was televised across national television. Up next, we have Ashley Graham's interview with Jason Momoa and Lisa Bonet. Momoa and his wife showed up to the 2019 Oscar Awards when it happened. When they were interviewed by model Ashley Graham, she requested that he give her a haka move. Haka refers to the many ceremonial dances from the Maori people. Momoa is immediately hesitant, and it doesn't go unnoticed by Graham as she eggs him on to do it. Bonet is clearly unimpressed, offering some type of explanation that you can't hear what she's saying, but her husband cuts it off and gives Graham what she wants. The internet was not happy with this exchange. One user called her corny, while many others said that she was disrespecting his culture as he is from Hawaii and not New Zealand, where the Maori culture originates. At least he's familiar with some of the customs though, as he explained in a completely separate interview unrelated to the Oscars that his family's roots go back and forth from Hawaii and New Zealand at some point. Regardless, Graham pushing him to do that wasn't a good look for her. Coming up are the South Park creators and their red carpet looks. Creators of the hit cartoon comedy, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, confessed to everything that went down that evening in the year 2000. To put it shortly, they did not take anything seriously, despite Parker being nominated for an award. The original plan was to dress up in duck costumes, but out of fear they would be denied entry, they went for dresses to blend in with everyone else. So that's what they did. They dressed up in their dresses that were nods off to outfits Jennifer Lopez and Gwyneth Paltrow had worn previously, and to top it all off, were also extremely under the influence. They explained even stepping out of the vehicle was an experience due to their incapacitated state. They managed to get through the carpet and the interviews. They were smart and had it all planned out, vowing that they don't acknowledge the dresses, and if they were asked to divert and avoid it at all costs. Next up is Dakota Johnson, low-key snapping at her mom. During the 2015 Academy Awards, Johnson brings her mother, fellow actress Melanie Griffith, as her date. Knowing Johnson and her collected bluntness, what happened shouldn't come off as surprising. While they were being interviewed together, Griffith was asked if she had watched her daughter's movie. She declined, saying it would be strange. The movie in question? 50 Shades of Grey, and we're all aware of the nature of that film. So to not want to see it for those reasons as a mother, it's totally understandable. Johnson cuts in and said it would be fine and she'll watch it one day. After all, it's just a movie since everything is fictional. When the reporter accepts this answer and reaffirms how well her daughter did in the film, Griffith continues and says, well, she's a really good actress, I don't need to see it to know how good she is, which sparked mild irritation from Johnson, who gets a little snappy and says she doesn't need to watch it. It's kind of awkward for the reporter as she comes in to soothe the awkward family interaction. While it might have been awkward to watch it unfold, mother-daughter bickering is more common than you'd think.
At number 10, we have the Joker interview. Now, I know this interview didn't take place in real life, but it was a late night show, so go with me on this one. For those who've never seen the movie, first of all, go watch it. Secondly, spoiler alert. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about the late night zinger at the end of the movie. The movie's protagonist Arthur is absolutely obsessed with the late night talk show, The Murray Franklin Show, so when he gets the opportunity to be on the show after making waves in a comedy club, he's thrilled. Maybe a little too thrilled. He then hatches a plan to do a stand-up act for Murray, and the punchline really makes your heart stop. Once he gets his shining moment on stage, he pulls his punchline and a gun? He shoots Murray and chaos ensues. Now that's what I call ruining a career, am I right? I'm not funny. And at number 9, Lilly Singh. Last year, YouTube sensation Lilly Singh debuted her new late night talk show, A Little Late with Lilly. But just 2 weeks after the premiere, Lilly was already facing backlash, forcing her to apologize for a joke that she made on the show. One of Lilly's first guests, Jessica Alba, shared images of her kids where Lilly decided to make a jab after seeing the children with towels on their head, saying, quote, "Don't worry, it's just like my Punjabi friends." End quote. This joke was in reference to the towels looking like turbans. When Lilly's fans expressed their concern with the joke, she stated that Alba's appearance was the first tape, so her nervous energy must have led to bad improv. This started a downward spiral as the show's ratings started to plummet, and not much traction has picked up since then. Coming in hot at 8, Courtney Love on Letterman. When singer-songwriter Courtney Love appeared on Letterman in 2004, her interview would be one for the ages. In her most unforgettable incredible interview, Courtney Love famously pulled up her shirt and flashed the late night host. When asked years later why she did it, her response was that she was inspired when Drew Barrymore had done it on the same show. She said, quote, "Drew Barrymore had done it when she was 19, and I was so out of my mind when I did it, I thought I was 19, but I was actually 39. End quote. Love also gives reference to her Letterman days when she would pull all kinds of stunts for attention, mainly due to her drug abuse and mental health relapses. Watching clips of her Letterman days interviews honestly makes me so sad to see her in such a state. She has really grown since then after getting the help that she needs. Courtney voices her struggles with her past and how it damaged her image in the process. I just hope that she can stay in a good place. In at 7, Jim Cramer. CNBC host Jim Cramer appeared on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart in March 2009. He was set to appear on the talk show after days of continuous, highly publicized criticism of the CNBC network by Jon over Wall Street greed and the CNBC's role in glorifying it. This feud came about shortly after the market crash of 2008 in the US. Stewart criticized Jim and CNBC because he claimed that instead of investigating the crash like they were obligated to as journalists, the network simply took any information given to them and blew up the story. Stewart found that to be a disservice to the people, especially after the economic collapse that affected so many others. Throughout the interview, Stewart proceeded to rip on Cramer, and honestly, I don't blame him. Investigative journalism is supposed to uncover the truth, but instead the network dropped the ball and led to no one blowing the whistle on the situation, resulting in the economic disaster. In an interview in 2011, Cramer revealed that the words exchanged during the interview still hurt him. This hurt his career as a reliable journalist, so I guess he's been served a slice of humble pie. Number 6, David Letterman and Joe Halderman. In 2009 on his late night talk show, David Letterman got real with his audience. He revealed to the public that he had been involved in affairs with some coworkers and that he had been a part of a $2 million blackmail scheme. A whole $2 million, people. Do you know how many chicky nugs you can buy with that? He told audiences that if he didn't pay up, his blackmailer would reveal his secrets to the public. But rather than get swallowed up in the scandal, he faced it head on. This subsequently led investigators to arrest former CBS News producer Joe Halderman for attempted extortion of David Letterman. Joe's reputation took a big hit after his arrest and incarceration, but at least now we know, don't mess with David Letterman. For number 5, we have Madonna on Letterman. Pop icon Madonna made waves during her 1994 interview with David Letterman. As she was introduced to the show, Letterman made some crass remarks at her and made some sexualized jokes about her. Madonna was not having it, no sir, no ma'am. Instead, she decided to retaliate against Letterman in the interview, where she proceeded to drop some landfill-worthy language amounting to a grand total of 14 F-bombs. 14! The pop singer also made some crass remarks about Letterman towards the audience, saying things like, "I gave him a pair of my underpants and he won't smell them." Ew? On top of that, Madonna stayed on well after her time slot was supposed to end, resulting in producers having to bump the other guest slots. I guess that when Madonna gets petty, she gets petty. This controversial interview led to several FCC complaints and some harsh words by Entertainment Weekly being thrown her way, and the whole kerfuffle knocked her down a few pegs. Many people thought that Madonna's career was deader than dead after that stunt, but miraculously, she found her way out of the rubble and tried to forget about the ordeal moving forward. In at 4, Andy Dick on Jimmy Kimmel Live. Andy Dick and Ivanka Trump were guests on Jimmy Kimmel Live back in 2007. During the interview, Andy was being a bit of a and getting a little too friendly with Ivanka as he was seen creepily touching her body. It even got so bad to the point where Kimmel had to tell him to stop and even get up from his chair in an effort to stop him from touching her. All of this to no avail because he just wouldn't stop. Mr. Dick, fitting name, right, was later escorted from the interview by members of security because he just wouldn't stop harassing Ivanka. Now, if you know anything about Andy Dick, then you know he's infamous for assault allegations and even jail time as a result. This interview was just one of the many instances of assault that follows him to this day. Needless to say, he's got a poor reputation. Coming in close at number 3, Joaquin Phoenix on Letterman. The Joker actor tried to play his own joke on the Letterman show back in 2009. Joaquin acted his way through the interview, trying to give off a dazed sort of image. During his time on the late night show, audiences watched as Phoenix acted loopy and out of it as he stumbled over his words and just straight up looked like he took too much NyQuil and tried to fight sleep, you know? Anyway, he just ended up looking straight cringy. Joaquin has since apologized to Letterman for his strange bit, but that interview dented his image a bit, and has stuck with him ever since. Almost at the end of number 2, Crispin Glover on Letterman. The Back to the Future actor became infamous for his little stunt on the Letterman late night show back in 1987. He was invited onto the show to promote his newest film, River's Edge, but upon appearing for his interview, things sort of went sideways. Dressed in a wig, hippie pants, and platform shoes, Glover babbled on, reading clips about himself from the newspaper, and rambling on nonsensically, and even getting aggressive almost to the point of him kicking Letterman in the face. No one knows for sure if the whole show was just a bit, or if he was high on more of that coveted no-no snow. But one thing's for certain, it was hella entertaining to watch. Coming to a close at number 1, Farrah Fawcett on Letterman. In 1997, Charlie's Angels star Farrah Fawcett took audience members on a wild ride during her interview on the Letterman show. The actress seemed really out of it during the whole interview. Throughout her time on the show, Fawcett was stumbling over her words, being incoherent at times, and even telling very lengthy stories that mostly didn't make much sense. To make things worse for the famed celebrity, she didn't even understand when Letterman was making jabs at her. It honestly didn't look like she was paying much attention to what was happening around her. Many people suspected that she was high during the interview, but one thing's for sure, her character was never the same after that. And there we have it, guys, the top 10 late night interviews that destroyed a celebrity's career. Hope you enjoyed this one, guys. I've come to the conclusion that the worst celebrity moments happened on Letterman because oh my goodness.
Starting off our list today at number 10, we have the ex-wife interview. Jada is known to invite just about everyone on her Red Table talk show. So it really shouldn't be a surprise when we found out that she invited Will Smith's ex-wife, Cherie. And during the interview, they would talk about a time that Jada actually thought it was okay to discipline Will's son, Trey. With both ladies describing their sides of the story, Jada would start things off by saying, "I can remember some times that I really crossed the line. There was one time Trey had a play date and he misbehaved, and I was like, we gotta sit down, we gotta talk about this. Trey can't be behaving this way." And Cherie shared her version by adding, "I literally walked into the house, just dropped him off, and as I walked in, Jada was like, 'Listen, we gotta talk about his behavior,' and I was like, 'Go get his daddy, please. Why were you talking about what happens at my house over here? This behavior was at my house, but you can't really discipline someone else's kids and think it's okay." Number 9, forced marriage interview. During an interview with People magazine, Jada would tell the media outlet that she never wanted to get married, and she ultimately only ended up getting married because her mother told her she had to get married. With Jada's mother being old and Will wanting a family, in the end Jada agreed to getting married as she was forced to believe that it was something she really should have done. Even though she admitted that she fell hard for Will when they first started dating in 1995, she would also admit that after she got pregnant with their son Jaden 2 years later, she wasn't necessarily down to have a traditional wedding. Later on in the interview, Jada would then say that the reason she was having so much doubt when it came to the idea to marriage, even though she adored Will, was because she never really seen a happy marriage and it made her not fond of the idea. And honestly, that's probably why she ended up cheating on Will in the first place. Hey my little peaches, are you liking this video so far? If so, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Coming at number 8, we have Willow's photo. When Jada sat down for an interview with high-end shopping site Net-a-Porter, she would have to come to her daughter's defense again after she was asked about the controversial photo of Willow being 13 years old laying in bed with the shirtless 20-year-old photographer. Jada would then go on to tell the interviewer, "Just don't pollute something that's not dirty. It's really tough. I feel like the connection to value of women on a bigger scale has decreased tremendously. Even though you look and go, women have so many opportunities," and it's like, yeah, but at what cost? Are women valued for being women, or are they valued when they have more masculine qualities? She then went on to note that she just wants her kids to be happy and just wants them to be themselves, as her kids aren't her and she can't fix things that happen to her by projecting her thoughts onto her kids because it's a terrible trap, and that's why she stood by Willow's decision and made all of us cringe in the process. Number 7, Scientology. Okay, so we all know Jada's a little weird, and that's probably because over the last decade she's been trying to deny that she has any affiliation with the Church of Scientology. And then after she was exposed by an ex-Scientologist for not only being spotted at the Celebrity Center, but also for opening a school for the controversial religion for kids, Jada would then bring Lee on her Red Table talk show, and she would clear the air by trying to settle their dispute back in 2018. And in the interview, it definitely had a lot of us raising our eyebrows because we just couldn't believe that Jada was lying through her teeth just to justify why she was going to the church in the first place. During the interview, Jada would say, "My grandmother was like, you're gonna learn all the religions, and then you gotta decide which one you want to practice. I always took the position that I'm here at the Scientology Center to learn what I want to learn, and I have no interest in being a Scientologist." And that statement would have been fine if it was the truth, but you can't open a Scientology school for kids and then say you have no intention of being a Scientologist when you're already affiliated with the religion. Number 6, parenting. With Jada and Will Smith being A-list celebrities at one point, it's no surprise that their children also grew up in the limelight. However, as any aspect of a celebrity, being a famous parent has sometimes led to increased scrutiny for Jada. Jada's and Will's parenting has often come under fire for years, which would then cause Jada to sit down with US Weekly to explain the Smiths are very open about a wide variety of subjects when she said, "I'm not a conventional parent, which I take a lot of pride in." And then in 2018, Jada would also admit that she and Will had different parenting approaches and often argued over the subjects like their son Jaden Smith wearing a skirt. She would then take to her Red Table talk show to embarrass her husband by saying he has his feelings on that for sure. I remember Will calling me and being like, "Have you talked about this with Jaden and him wearing a skirt?" And I said, "Yes, I have. He's pretty happy about it." But honestly, the fact that she's gotten her kids to even turn on their father during interviews just proves that she isn't exactly the role model parent everybody should be following. Number 5. Open marriage. Jada and Will Smith have faced a lot of scrutiny over their marriage to the point they have become a laughingstock or a hero to other people who have a non-conventional approach when it comes to their love life. In 2013, Jada would sit down for an interview with HuffPost Live, and she would admit more fuel to the fire behind the rumors surrounding her open marriage, when she would insist that she and Will had no claim over each other's lives. She would then go on to say, "I've always told Will, you can do whatever you want as long as you can look at yourself in the mirror and be okay." She then insisted that she was here to be his partner, but at the end of the day, Will had to learn how to be his own man. After the interview started to go viral, it faced a lot of backlash, and Jada would head to her Facebook page to clear everything up by saying, "Will and I can do whatever we want because we trust each other to do so. This doesn't mean we have to be in an open relationship, this means we have grown. But if you aren't in an open relationship, how do you explain your affair with August Alsina? And how are you able to look at yourself in the mirror and be okay with the fact that you embarrass your husband every single day?" Number 4. Interviewed herself. In the aftermath of the whole August Alsina interview, Jada Pinkett Smith would admit that there was some healing that needed to take place, and she would tweet that she would be interviewing herself as the next subject on her Red Table Talk episode, and Will Smith would be joining her. In the episode, we would see Will share his side of the story, and watching him find peace in the process while bringing up all of his core thoughts of pain was honestly just heartbreaking to see. Although Jada would confirm that she had an affair with August, she also went on to clarify that her and Will were temporarily separated when it happened, and then she went on to deny August's allegations of Will giving the singer his blessings. With the interview being watched more than 30 million times, it quickly went viral, and Jada's repeated use of the word entanglement rather than affair became an online target for jokes, as did a picture that showed Will in tears. Number 3. Embarrass Snoop Dogg. With Snoop Dogg being a good friend to Jada Pinkett Smith, I don't think any of us really believed that she could do something so cruel to embarrass her good friend during an interview on her Red Table Talk show. But she did. So we all saw Gayle King come for Kobe in 2020 after he passed away and claimed that the basketball legend was accused of making unwanted advancements towards an unnamed woman. Snoop, being clearly upset with the fact people were choosing to ruin Kobe's legacy in an attempt for fame, would then take to his Instagram to post a video where he would call Gayle out by insulting her appearance and telling her, "Back off, B, before we come get you." As a result of the outburst, Jada would then force the rapper to make an appearance on her Red Table Talk show so she could clear the air. But in the process, she showed no mercy and ended up embarrassing Snoop Dogg by saying, "When you first came out and said what you said, you know, in regards to Gayle, my heart dropped. I felt like not only were you talking to Gayle, but you were also talking to me. I was like, oh no, Snoop has now taken his power flow away from me, away from Willow, away from my mother." Snoop Dogg then ended up feeling so ashamed that he even issued Gayle an apology. But honestly, even though he was in the wrong, there was no need to embarrass him in front of the whole world when this just could have been a private conversation between two old friends. Number 2. Racial bias. During a Red Table Talk interview, Jada would reveal what triggers her the most when it comes to white women, when she opened up about her relationship she has with white women and women of color, and then she revealed a surprising revelation of how she views women with blonde hair. When she went on to say, "I think what crushes me specifically in my relationship with white women, the thing that really breaks my heart, is that white women understand what it feels like to be oppressed." She then went on to admit her own racial biases when she said, "I have to admit I'm guilty to that to a certain degree because I do have my biases, specifically to blonde women. Blonde hair on white women just triggers me. I've had to catch myself." Jada then went on to explain she harbors such hateful thoughts when it comes to white women with blonde hair because all throughout her childhood, all she can remember is being teased by them in regards to her hair, how she looked, and how they made her feel belittled. But I think we can all agree that she was just sneak dissing Margot Robbie. And probably me next, who knows. And coming in number 1 today, we have the dealer interview. When Jada appeared on Sway in the Morning back in 2017, she would reveal a lot of interesting things when it came to her and Tupac. In the interview, when Sway asked her to talk about their relationship, she would say, "One of the things that's very interesting that I've never really said before is that when I first met Pac, when we first met, I was a dealer." Jada then went on to explain that she wasn't going to jump into the full details of their relationship because she was going to write a book on it, but then she would explain that she had to leave that life behind and Pac behind because something really bad happened, so she had to leave, and as she was leaving, Pac was going into it, and there was a point in which she had to go her separate ways from Pac, and she went on to say, "And I just felt like, okay, God, one day you're going to do for Pac what you did for me, which is you saved me." It's clear that their relationship was complicated and we can't really grasp what she was trying to explain about their relationship, but it's clear that their relationship was based on survival more than it was romance. Starting off our list today at number 10, we have Liam Hemsworth. Thanks to Miley Cyrus's new hit song Flowers, it's been number 1 on the Billboard for 3 weeks, and because the song is so popular, it resurfaced a couple of clips that shows Liam Hemsworth visibly cringing at his ex-wife Miley Cyrus on the red carpet during interviews. In one video, Miley could be seen twerking on Liam at a Vanity Fair Oscars after party in February of 2019. As the two were being interviewed, Liam then backed away quickly and looked incredibly uncomfortable as she danced for the cameras, to which he responded by saying, "Don't do it, don't do it, you're scarring everyone on the red carpet." Miley then immediately stopped and glanced awkwardly at the camera. In another clip uploaded, the couple could be seen attending the Avengers Endgame premiere, and the singer tried to pose cheekily with her husband, and she made this move to lick his neck, and Liam was displeased and told Miley to behave for once. And when he went on to cling onto her waist, she seemed to be very annoyed at his gesture and pushed his hand away, which resulted in him walking away while she continued posing on her own. Number 9, Dakota Johnson. What was supposed to be a sweet mother and daughter moment during the Oscars red carpet show ended up becoming one of the night's most awkward interviews, when ABC host Laura Spencer asked the actress Melanie Griffith if she was going to see her daughter's racy movie 50 Shades of Grey. The actress would then quickly respond no before her daughter Dakota Johnson scowled and said, "Maybe one day." However, then her mom would respond by saying, "I don't think I can. I think it would be strange. Well, she's a good actress. I don't need to see that to know she's good." The subject was obviously still a sore subject and the sticking point between the pair, as Dakota then jumped into a pouting teenager for a moment before snapping at her mother by saying, "Alright, you don't have to see it, Jesus Christ." The uncomfortable exchange between the two then set social media on fire, inspiring some harsh criticism and some pretty serious tweets. However, near the end of the night, Melanie would opt to tell Dakota that she would watch the film just so she could smooth things over between her and her daughter. Hey my little peaches, are you liking this video so far? If so, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Coming number 8, we have Shailene Woodley. So during most interviews, Shailene Woodley is always known for being really blunt when it comes to her answering questions, especially when the questions make her feel uncomfortable. During one incident on the red carpet, Shailene had a pretty awkward encounter that caused her to be dumbfounded when it came to the reporter's question. In the interview, the reporter looked at the actor and then out of nowhere asked her if she was hungry before noting that she herself was hungry. Shailene then reacted in a way that was pretty awkward and rude in the moment, as she looked at her interviewer like she was crazy and said, well, you should probably eat. I don't think any of us really blame Shailene in this situation for being rude, as it was such a weird question and comment to come from a reporter. Not to mention, there were so many questions that the reporter could have asked her, but she chose to ask the actor if she was hungry, because you aren't going to get a genuinely nice answer to that question. Number 7, Selena Gomez. During a red carpet interview in 2017, Billboard Woman in Music event, Selena would be asked about how Justin Bieber impacted the person she is today, and the singer and actor responded by being a little standoffish when she said, I don't think anyone else cares. I think for me, what's been great is that I've been able to live the life I wanted for myself, and it doesn't always look the way people think it should. But it's not really my concern anymore. Look, my family is great, my health is great, I love deeply, and that's just who I am. I'm not really ashamed. While the actress claimed that no one really cared about her and Justin's relationship, Twitter reactions would definitely prove otherwise to Selena's response, as one fan would say, Selena Gomez and Justin Bieber will definitely last this time if they're both on the same page romantically. And then another fan would note, so as dumb as this sounds, I'm so happy when I heard Justin Bieber and Selena Gomez are back together. It's that relationship I basically grew up with, and I feel as if I'm invested in. My heart was so full when I heard the news. Even today, people are still fond on the idea that the former couple may cross paths yet again in the future, and it's gotten to the point that every time Justin is happy with another woman, his fans still chant Selena's name. Number 6, Jim Carrey. Back in 2017, Jim Carrey was clearly just really bored, so the comedian decided he would randomly show up to a New York red carpet event. While on the red carpet, he made his way to a reporter, and then he ended up telling her that the only reason he showed up to the event is because he was trying to find the most meaningless event he could attend. If the interview wouldn't get any more funnier due to his odd behavior, he then went on this really weird rant where he stated that icons and personalities don't really exist by saying, I don't believe in icons, I don't believe in personalities. I believe that peace lies beyond personality, an invitation in disguise, beyond the red S on your chest that makes bullets bounce off. I believe that it's deeper than that. I believe we're a field of energy dancing for itself, and I don't care. He then turned into one of his comedic characters before walking away when he came to the conclusion to his rant and said, we don't matter. Number 5, Kim Kardashian. Back in 2019, Kim Kardashian awkwardly interrupted her older sister during an interview on the E! People's Choice Awards red carpet. When E! anchor Juliana Rancic asked Kourtney Kardashian who designed her bra-bearing glittering suit, she began to say she didn't plan her answer in advance, but then she was cut off when Kim decided to lunge in front of her and start to hype their new fragrance collaboration by saying, all that matters is that we're wearing KKW Diamond. We're all wearing that. She then went on to tell Kourtney, I was saving you since you didn't know who you were wearing. That was my save. Kourtney then went on to correct Kim by saying, no, it was Naeem Khan. I just didn't know how to pronounce it. Despite the awkward moment, Kourtney didn't appear to mind the publicity, but Kim didn't need to interrupt her sister's interview to support her new line, as the world was already talking about it. Number 4, Jennifer Lawrence. So back in 2012, Josh Hutcherson was in an interview on the red carpet for the Catching Fire press tour when Jennifer Lawrence thought it would be a good idea to punk her co-star while he was in mid-interview by asking him how his rash was doing. Later, Josh would then open up about the incident on the late night with Jimmy Fallon, and there he would reveal that Jennifer had this history of punking him, and while making rounds on the red carpet, he then admitted at one time mid-interview she breezed past him and asked him, hey Josh, how's the rash doing? Josh then looked extremely embarrassed before he went on to note that Jennifer was actually really crazy. The reporter then went on to question Josh about the incident, and he said, oh, my rash, yeah, my rash is doing fantastic. Don't worry about that. I love Jennifer. The actor was obviously really uncomfortable with Jennifer's uncalled move, that he wanted to end the interview and opted to say, I gotta go back to take care of the rash before running away from his interview. Number 3, Nicki Minaj. Nicki Minaj is known for speaking her mind, so back in 2013, after she had a mouthful to say after a not-so-good interview with Access Hollywood's correspondent, Laura Saltman, the Anaconda rapper would then throw some serious shade at the reporter on the red carpet after Laura asked the rapper about her recent Twitter rant, which included catty words about fellow American Idol judge Mariah Carey, and she snapped back and refused to answer the question. When Laura asked, "Are you looking forward to the end of American Idol? Because I know there were Twitter comments you made today that caused quite a stir," Nicki would then respond by saying, "That question didn't even make sense, so if you want to insinuate what you're talking about, I'm not going to." Before Laura could even respond, Nicki would then roll her eyes, say goodnight, and walk away. In light of the diss, Saltman then decided to express her feelings in a blog posted to Access Hollywood's website, where she labeled Nicki as a mean girl and cyberbullying, perpetuating the problems of social media. Number 2, Amber Heard. Back in 2015, Amber would be captured giving her mom a stern lesson on the red carpet about the rules she has to follow as her mom joined her at a glitzy film premiere. At the time, Amber was still married to Johnny Depp, and she decided to bring her mother along for the ride at a screening of Johnny's new flick at the time, Black Mass, at Toronto's International Film Festival. Her proud mom then watched from the sidelines as Amber oozed in this striking black dress in front of the camera. However, the actress was less than impressed when she spotted her mom talking to a nearby cameraman. In a video captured, the star's mom could be seen in the video identifying herself to a man from Kiss 92.5, where she proudly gushed, saying she was Amber's mom. Amber then stormed towards her mother and interrupted the interview. And in the video, you could see Amber's face. It was so stony that she may as well have been embarrassed by her mom in front of friends at a playground. She then quickly grabbed her mother, gave her a warning by saying never make eye contact. And coming in at number 1 today, we have Nicole Kidman. Nicole Kidman wasn't necessarily rude, but she did get a pretty funny response from Tom Hiddleston when she briefly interrupted him during an interview at the Golden Globes one year. Tom was in the middle of his interview talking to Liza Koshy about one of his shows, and Nicole decided to insert herself in between Tom and Liza and then quickly said, "That's enough talking." While Nicole was clearly just pulling Tom's leg, at first he was a bit taken back by Nicole's actions, and it did take him a bit to notice that Nicole was doing a quirky little bit. Once the actor realized Nicole was only joking, he then quickly joined in on the fun. He then conducted a quick impromptu moment in the interview with Nicole, and it was definitely a moment that was awkward for a second, but then everybody laughed it off.
In at number 10, Tom Hiddleston. Back in June of 2016, it was announced that America's favorite villain, Mr. Tom Hiddleston, was romantically involved with Taylor Swift. They were dubbed a celebrity name of Hiddle Swift, and all seemed, well and good. Although in August of 2016, they were fighting over his scheduling with Thor Ragnarok in Australia. Then by September of 2016, they were over, and both sides alleged that they dumped the other one. Tom said it was because he wanted to go more public with their relationship, and Taylor Swift alluded to another reason for it ending in a song of hers, I guess. Either way, Tom was a bit shaken up by the whole situation, and during an interview with GQ magazine, he kind of burned himself. He was trying to distract from the topic of Swift by sharing his recipe for bolognese, but Tom still managed to talk way too much about Taylor Swift. Even after the interview had finished, he apparently visited the reporter's door at 6 a.m. to further clarify things that he had said about her in the interview. In at number 9, Paris Hilton. Paris Hilton not only became famous for being the great-granddaughter of the guy who created Hilton Hotels, but she also invented the idea of influencers. She would tell the paparazzi where she was going to be and then end up all over page 6 whenever she did something crazy at a nightclub. Although she also had a brief stint acting in reality TV shows. In fact, for a while, she believed that she was the world's top reality TV star, even though her former friend Kim Kardashian was kind of on the come up. During one interview with ABC in 2011, she was doing her very best to stay calm as a reporter grilled her with questions meant to discount her worth in society. Then Paris was asked by the reporter if she felt like her career was over, and in response, she just walked right out of the interview. People were already feeling that her career was done, but nobody, I guess, had the heart to tell her. So when she found out just as much, she left the interview, which kind of answers answered the question for us. In at number 8, Kathie Lee Gifford. Kathie is best known for her 15-year run on the talk show Live with Regis and Kathie Lee, which she co-hosted with Regis Philbin. She has also done some acting in a few films, but her primary focus has been working for live entertainment news shows. Although after she maybe had one too many glasses of wine, I don't know, I think they do a Today Show happy hour, she conducted a very embarrassing interview with Martin Short. Martin was coming on the Today Show to promote, and it looks like Kathie didn't do her research beforehand. Martin's wife had passed away 2 years prior to the interview, and Gifford had no clue. She threw multiple questions about his wife and his relationship, but at no point did he have a chance to actually correct her. Although right before the commercial break, he definitely had to update her. I mean, she apparently profusely apologized for this big gaffe, but her career was already tanked at that point. And if not her career, at least her reputation. In at number 7, Crispin Glover. While Crispin Glover has never really been considered a typical leading man, he has certainly distinguished himself as one of the more intriguing personalities in Hollywood. His unusual characters and personal projects have inspired a cult-like following that has dubbed him both a madman and a genius. However, an interview back in 1987 stunted his career a little bit, and we wouldn't see him on many late-night interviews for a while. While speaking with David Letterman, Crispin showed up as Ruben. Ruben was a character that he was portraying in an upcoming film called Ruben and Ed, although not a single soul told Letterman that this was the intended plan, so he was completely surprised when it happened. Sometimes that works, but in this case it was a disaster. The entire interview was just Dave trying to keep up with Crispin and his Ruben rants, but ultimately ended in Letterman just walking out of the interview. In at number 6, Gary Coleman. First and foremost, rest in peace Gary Coleman. It was terrible to see this great actor's career be taken down and then ridiculed when he had to go get a regular job. I mean, before he passed, Gary did an interview in 2010 with The Insider, and things got very heated. One of those hosts started asking him questions about his ex-wife Susan Price, but Coleman did not take this well. He began yelling expletives at the mortified host as he immediately departed the interview. It must have been a very touchy subject, but this is also a reminder of why it's important to brief guests with the questions that they'll be asked. I mean, these curveballs from reporters rarely lead to anything good, and Gary's interview is kind of proof of that. In at number 5, Cara Delevingne. Let's just say her dry British humor was not really received by these happy-go-lucky morning news anchors at CBS Sacramento. I mean, at the start of the interview, she was asked some very dumb questions. For example, the film Paper Towns was based on a book, so they asked her if she had read the book, and then immediately after made a snide comment about her probably not having enough time to read. Now, Cara obviously takes offense to this, judging by her body language, but instead decides to flip it into a joke, saying that she didn't even read the script, just winged it.
No, I never read the book or the script, actually. I kind of winged it.
And the interviewers actually take this as factual for a moment before her laughing kind of cuts the tension. That's not even the most awkward part of this interview, though.
I think it probably is us. Well, then on that note... We figured as much. We'll let you go then. How about that? We'll let you go take a little nap, maybe get a Red Bull. How about that?
After one interviewer asked her why she isn't as excited as her other interviews, she remarks that it's very early and that she thought it was going well, so again, jokingly, she said, "It must be you." And the lady in the middle, oh my god, she sounded so bitter. "We'll let you take a little nap and have a Red Bull? How about that?" Yes. How about that level of professional journalism? Good morning, Sacramento. Although ever since this interview, we haven't really seen Cara in any more movies, and even the ones that we have seen her in, it was like, whatever. In at number 4, Robert Pattinson. When the Twilight series was at its peak, Rob had to do a ton of press to promote the film, and his agent made it expressly clear to every single interviewer not to mention his rumored relationship. People were already speculating that Pattinson was dating co-star Kristen Stewart, but they definitely wanted to keep things as private as possible. However, when he went on air with Ryan Seacrest, things went sideways. As soon as Seacrest started asking about his rumored relationship, Rob's agent gave him the cue to leave the interview. Now, this didn't exactly destroy his career, but it certainly put a bad light on the actor for being kind of so dodgy with questions. I mean, if he had have just stayed in the interview and just told Ryan that he didn't want to talk about it, I bet Ryan would have just moved on. I mean, Seacrest has been in that business for so long that he knows how to keep things professional. But I guess he missed the memo on not talking about the relationship thing.
What can you tell them about it?
I also just love that you can see his agent in the back giving the old wrap it up signal to Ryan, and he is definitely ignoring her. In at number 3, Jim Carrey. While at the New York Fashion Week in 2017, Jim Carrey made a rare appearance, and while walking down the red carpet, he did his best to avoid an interview with E! News. At first, he kind of tried to twirl around a few times and not really stand still, hoping that would work, but man, she was persistent. Carrey then says that he wanted to find the most meaningless event that he could go to, and that's how he ended up there. The interviewer tries to keep the integrity of the event high and claims that it's a celebration of icons, for which Jim says, icons don't exist. I don't believe in personalities. I don't believe you exist, but there is a wonderful fragrance in the air. Before departing from this awkward interview, he leaves her with this nugget of truth.
It's not our world.
None of this is real?
Nope.
It was a while before we saw Jim Carrey again after that, but we're sure he wants it that way. I mean, it probably made keeping the Sonic live-action film quiet a lot easier. In at number 2, Mel Gibson. While promoting his film Edge of Darkness in a 2010 interview with WGN-TV, Mel Gibson appeared like he really didn't want to be there. I mean, the best part was that he wasn't even physically there. He just was appearing via satellite because it was probably the fastest way to do this press run. Although, among all of the questions that annoyed the actor, it was when he dove into Gibson's drinking that kind of really set him off. The reporter got even more bold by asking him about his previous anti-Semitic remarks, to which Mel replied that was 4 years ago and he had already apologized for that. And the reporter, sensing that Mel was about to cuss him out on live air, he kind of shifted back to promoting the film. Good move. Although Mel Gibson thought that the interview had disconnected, which resulted in some very troubling remarks to air live.
Thanks a lot for joining us, Mel. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Last but certainly not least on our number 1 spot, Courtney Love. Courtney Love has been a mess forever. She does not handle interviews with any ounce of grace, and her crashing an interview with Madonna kind of proves my point. Back at the 1995 MTV VMAs, the interviewer was engaged in a discussion with Madonna when he notices Courtney Love yelling from down below. He then invites her onto the interview platform, even at the behest of Madonna, and things immediately turn to the worst case scenario. She starts drunkenly throwing small items at Madonna, and then she kneels down on the ground, and at that point Madonna just walks off the stage. Courtney then stays and hijacks the entire interview, going on more drunken rants and just being generally all over the place. I mean, literally all over the place. And it turns out the guy should have just listened to Madonna and had security keep Courtney back. Then we wouldn't have had this. In at number 10, Kanye West. Now, I know what you're thinking. If you're a fan of Kanye West, then you will most likely hit that dislike button and comment something like, "What are you talking about? Kanye still has a career." I get that. But bear with me on this one. While he was on the show back in 2016, he went on a rant that not only left Ellen speechless, but also lasted for 6 minutes. He talked about everything as well, from race to his constant tweeting, and much of the interview wasn't even able to air on television because of just how off-brand he was for the demographic of that show. By that I mean that he said a lot of swear words. That was probably one of his more calmer moments, but just 6 months after this interview, Kanye's mental health really started to deteriorate. Dispatch audio from the day that Kanye West was hospitalized for exhaustion reveals that authorities were called to the scene of a psychiatric emergency, which makes what he said in that interview feel a little more dark than inspiring. In at number 9, Wendy Williams. Both Wendy and Ellen host daytime talk shows, so it's natural that there would be sort of a bit of tension between them, I guess, or, sibling rivalry on Netflix. I don't know if that's a thing, but if it is, these guys have it. Both Wendy and Ellen host daytime talk shows, so it's natural that there would be a bit of tension between them. Although Wendy Williams is typically the first to throw some shade Ellen's way and has done so numerous times. One of the more awkward times that she tried to insult Ellen was when she plugged her PETA ad by acknowledging that Ellen was vegan. Then she asked her, "How do you live without bacon?" Which forced Ellen DeGeneres to reply that she thinks pigs are smart, so that means Wendy Williams was talking about PETA in order to shame someone for being vegan. I don't really understand her. Her next Ellen insult was a bit more on the nose, but still a bad joke. When she came on the show, they played a game of heads up, and Williams got to insult Ellen just one more time. Following this, Wendy Williams' reputation definitely took a bit of a hit, but with Ellen's ship now going down, I bet Wendy is quite pleased. In at number 8, Sean Hayes. Right at the top of the episode, Will and Grace star Sean Hayes wasted no time insulting Ellen. In what is now referred to as the Battle of the Gays, Sean repeatedly calls her Helen from the moment that the episode starts, which clearly starts to bother her as it totally botches the opening dialogue for the episode. From there, it just gets worse. He tossed his ring into the mug on the table as a joke because Ellen complained that it hurt her when he tapped her knee. Sean then proceeds to pluck the ring out of his drink and then flick the excess liquids all over Ellen. Ellen then tried to transition the conversation by talking about how long Will and Grace has been on the air, and then Sean then takes another jab at Ellen by saying that it's been running longer than her own show. And sure, it's great that he's been on a long-running show, but that's about all that he's done after this disastrous interview. In at number 7, Blake Shelton. Ellen is notorious for meddling in the relationships of celebrities, and she's always prying for more personal details and desperately trying to convince her guests that they need to get married. I mean, she bought Jennifer Lopez a clock with her and A-Rod kissing on it, and shortly after after that pair got married. So when Blake Shelton came on the show, she tried to do the same thing. However, unbeknownst to Ellen, Blake never received the clock at the end of the show. So when he came back on the show and Ellen asked him again if he had plans to marry Gwen Stefani, he just kind of let her have it. And I love that he called her out on using the clock as just a prop to harass her guests to get married. Although his singing career still continues, his relationship ended in divorce due to irreconcilable differences. I wonder if Ellen had a role in that. In at number 6, David Arquette. When David appeared on The Ellen Show alongside comedian Wanda Sykes, they played a very uncomfortable game of Never Have I Ever. At first, David seemed to just be really excited to be there, but as the interview segment went on, fans started to worry about him. Back in 2011, David made a very public announcement that he was checking himself into rehab for alcoholism, so when he came on the show a few years later, people were worried that he had fallen off the wagon again. As he misspoke in the segment, he pleaded with Ellen to cut that part out of the show, for which Ellen just said no. She then joked about how it was meant to be educational, and I don't know if he was drunk for this episode, but not too many big productions have taken a chance on him following this interview. In at number 5, Jennifer Lawrence. Ellen was put in an awkward situation during her interview with Jennifer Lawrence in 2012. What began as Ellen asking Jennifer about her new cat quickly spiraled into trans jokes that Ellen didn't know how to deal with. Lawrence explained that she always imagined cats as being female and dogs as being male, so when she bought her female cat and it began acting like a boy, she renamed it to Chaz Bono. And for those of you who completely missed that jab, Chaz is the transgender son of Sharon, the late Sonny Bono. What followed next was just bizarre too. They had a slideshow of the cat going that was just supposed to line up with her story, but that curveball joke really put Ellen in a weird spot, and the audience had to watch her kind of tiptoe around it into a new topic. Now, this didn't exactly end Jennifer's career as an actor, but it certainly gave her a bad reputation in Hollywood. You can consider that a career destroyed. In at number 4, Giada De Laurentiis. The 2017 cooking segment is now a viral disaster for all to watch online. It was pretty much a disaster right from the jump, and having Nicole Kidman on a guest really didn't help. Giada was teaching both Nicole and Ellen how to make some of her favorite celebrity chef recipes. At least that was the intended plan. Instead, Giada made sexual innuendos about rice balls, insinuating that Ellen's never handled anything like that, which even slightly insults Nicole Kidman, who reminds Giada that this is a family show. However, Giada doesn't stop with the insults. From there, she quickly pivoted to insulting Ellen's lack of culinary skills, even saying that her rice balls look like dog food. After those few insults, Ellen basically bailed on the entire segment. She started eating the food on the table and overall just roasting how bad it was, with Nicole Kidman joining in. And that was the last time that we heard about Giada De Laurentiis. In at number 3, Caitlyn Jenner. The conversation began very lighthearted between newly transitioned Caitlyn Jenner and Ellen. She praised Jenner for her work in the transgender movement and her importance in that role, but when she tried to make Caitlyn explain her previous views on gay marriage, things got tense. At least Caitlyn stood up for herself and explained that her opinion has changed over time. I mean, she literally changed her entire identity, and Ellen is still asking if her opinions are the same. Clearly, Jenner's views and opinions have changed slightly, but she noted that because she's a traditionalist, she still can't understand why people don't want gay marriage. I'm not saying she's right, by the way. I'm simply pointing out a moment where a celebrity insulted Ellen and it kind of trashed her career a little bit. In at number 2, Jessica Simpson. Trainwreck is perhaps the best way to sum up this interview between Jessica Simpson and Ellen. Much like when David Arquette was on the show, people also thought that Jessica was drunk. I realized that she hadn't been on the show for 4 years, but it felt like she had never been in a conversation before. She would say something, and then as Ellen was responding, Simpson would stop her, go back on what she said, and then stumble a bit, and then change her answer. It was really weird. Like, you're on Ellen. You're not being grilled by Chris Hansen in your kitchen. She must have been extremely nervous, but following this interview, her career never really saw an uptick that most hoped for after appearing on the show. The Ellen bump, I believe they call it. Last but certainly not least, in our number 1 spot, Ellen DeGeneres. Dakota Johnson's appearance on Ellen will go down in history as a key moment that led to the downfall of Ellen herself. It really opened up everyone's eyes as to how little she cares about her guests or the show itself anymore. If you don't know what happened, the last time that Dakota Johnson was on the show, Ellen reamed her out for not getting a birthday invitation, so when the following birthday rolled around, Dakota made sure to invite Ellen. Although Ellen missed the party and then had the audacity to ask her again why she never received an invite, thus leading to Dakota calling Ellen out in front of everyone for lying. Ellen was busy getting chummy with former US President George Bush during Dakota's birthday, and thus began the slow ending to her career.
Starting off our list at number 10 is Katherine Heigl. We gotta be honest here and say there's probably a few interviews that affected her career, but one back in 2008 pretty much landed her on Hollywood's blacklist. She took the lead in the 2006 movie Knocked Up, and the movie, as well as her performance
performance was well received. Apparently not by the actress herself though, who opened up about how she felt about the movie later on in 2008. In the January issue of Vanity Fair, she said the movie was, I quote, a little sexist. It paints women as shrews, as humorless and uptight, and it paints the men as lovable, goofy, fun-loving guys. It exaggerated the characters, and I had a hard time with it some days. Why is this how you're portraying women? This interview alone was enough for people in Hollywood to turn away from wanting to work with her, but it was sealed when she did another interview in 2008 where she dissed the writing in her show Grey's Anatomy. The actress has to figure out a way to either keep her mouth shut or just choose her words wisely.
I'm not a rude person. I'm not an unkind or mean person. I would never.
And at number 9 is Paula Abdul. Back in January 2007, the American Idol judge did an interview that went viral instantly. Throughout the video, which happened to be filmed, she slurred her words, wobbled, swayed, and spoke a bunch of nonsense, basically. News anchors from Q13 Fox News Live streamed Paula from New York to do a live interview with her, but because of how she was acting, they thought there was some sort of connection issue. They kept saying there must be a problem and that she can't hear them properly, but that wasn't really the case at all. Even when she did respond to their questions, she was acting like she was highly intoxicated. She was closing her eyes, slurring her words, just acting kind of all manic and weird. Later she tried to explain, saying there was a connection error at first and they had a station from Alabama in her ear along with the Fox News at the same time. But once they fixed it, she blamed the rest of the erratic behavior on just being tired. She said fatigue and exhaustion just added to the whole thing, looking so disoriented. But no alcohol and no drugs. Absolutely no. The interview had a huge effect on her career. 2 years later, she wasn't able to land another contract with American Idol. The world didn't see much of her for years until she snagged a judging role on So You Think You Can Dance. However, her career just hasn't been the same ever since. Sliding into the number 8 spot on our list is 5 Seconds of Summer. Back in 2015, the band managed to alienate both their fans and a lot of fellow artists and celebrities in just one interview. And since then, the world hasn't heard much of them since. In December 2015, their interview with Rolling Stone left people really pissed off. Michael Clifford, who admitted during the interview that he was hungover, bashed the American Music Awards, which they performed at the night before. He said the show was compromised and had, I quote, a lot of fake people. He also called out Justin Bieber and said he thinks he hates them, for no apparent reason at all. Luke Hemmings from the band left fans and parents feeling disgusted after saying, when you put 4 young dudes on a tour bus playing theaters and arenas, you're going to have sex with a lot of girls, I guess. We had a good time. The interviewer awkwardly joked back, asking if they slept with multiple girls in one night or at the same time, and he responded with, I feel like I shouldn't say. You can say the possibility of that is high. People were pretty repulsed by their interview, and things just haven't been the same for their stardom since that day. Next up at number 7 is R. Kelly. He did some major damage for his career back in 2008 when he made comments about being with underage girls. But this interview came after he went to trial for being accused of child pornography. Kelly was accused of making a 27-minute sex tape with an underage female, but after going to trial, the jury declared him not guilty on all 14 counts. People were all feeling some type of way about him, some believed him and some didn't. But his interview after the trial didn't help paint a very good self-portrait. During an interview with BET, he was straight up asked, do you like teenage girls? After everything that went on with court, you would think his response would be an immediate no. However, he responded by saying, when you say teenage, how young are we talking? He went on to say that he has some 19-year-old female friends, but none that are technically illegal. After the interview was aired on BET, Kelly's team saw it and demanded that it never be shown again. It was already too late though, the damage had already been done.
This is not me, y'all. I'm fighting for my life. Y'all killing me with this. I gave y'all 30 years of my.
And at number 6 is Miles Teller. The actor had a promising career, especially after his role in Whiplash back in 2014. But it was after an interview in 2015 where his career took a hit and began to stall. In August 2015, he did an interview with Esquire, and he thought it would be appropriate to tell the female writer, and their waitress, that the bar glass was modeled after his private parts. He obviously used a much more vulgar term, but I'm definitely not going to repeat it. He was pretty sassy too, trying to demand the writer to cut his meat for him when their food came. The interview didn't paint the actor in a very positive light and says that things were changed around. After receiving tons of backlash from it, he told Vulture, I quote, "If how that story made me look was how I really was, I'd think I was the biggest douchebag too. I know who I am, and it's not who I was in that story." Since then, he hasn't been able to book movies like he used to and has only about 6 credits to his IMDb in the last 4 years. Some of you might not even heard of any of them. Halfway through the list at number 5 is the Chainsmokers, another time when a band tried a little too hard to be edgy and just came off as super lame instead. Back in 2016, Billboard did a cover story on the band where they said things that people weren't too thrilled about. Andrew Taggart told the magazine, I quote, "We rage every night. My mom's going to hate reading that, but she already knows." But his DJ partner Alex Pal said that they were pros, saying, "But you'll never see us getting carried out of a club. We're way too good at drinking." Both band members continued on with the interview and thought it was appropriate to bring up their groupies, even though they both had live-in girlfriends at the time. Alex said even before Success was number 1. And then Andrew chimed in saying, "Like, why am I trying to make all this money? I wanted to hook up with hotter girls. I had to date a model. We're just frat bro dudes, you know what I mean? Loving ladies and stuff." And drum roll please for the worst part of the entire interview, the boys also revealed the size of their private, saying that they measured from tip to tip. Classy. Here we are at number 4 with Gary Coleman. The actor sadly passed away at just 42 years old, so this is in no way to disrespect him, but to share what happened leading up to his very controversial death. The actor always had medical issues, but often didn't like to speak on them. On May 26, 2010, the actor fell down the stairs while at home with his wife and had to go to the hospital after cracking his head. He was treated, but the next day he went unconscious and landed on life support, where he died on May 28th. People were suspicious as to what actually happened, and rumors began to fly saying that his wife had actually pushed him down the stairs. Now, the only reason that they thought this was because they went to court after she accused him of physically abusing her. The couple was always known for their altercations and even appeared on the show Divorce Court. This is what led to Gary having an interview that impacted his career in a very negative way. One of the female hosts on The Insider asked him if he abuses his wife, and when he wouldn't flat out deny it, she begins to question if it's true or not, and that's basically when he lost it. He ended up saying to her, I quote, "Go F yourself. I don't know you, I don't care about you, your life doesn't matter to me. If you get hit by a bus tonight, I'm not going to care."
There is no abuse that goes on in my house. Now, if people believe that I'm...
Then he storms off the set and tells all of the hosts to go themselves. People were stunned by his anger and reaction, and he wasn't very well received after that. Alright guys, at number 3 is Megan Fox. It is no surprise to anyone anymore that her career started to fizzle away after the Transformers incident when she publicly bashed the director. In 2009, Fox told Wonderland that the director of the film series, Michael Bay, is, I quote, "like Napoleon, and he wants to create this insane, infamous madman reputation. He wants to be like Hitler on his sets, and he is." She went on to call him a nightmare to work with and said that he has no skills at all. As a result from her interview remarks, she was fired from Transformers Dark Side of the Moon and was only booking smaller roles and cameos. It wasn't until she later apologized to Bay that she was allowed back in the director's blockbuster movies, which is how she got to start in his Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle franchise. However, Bay told GQ it was actually Steven Spielberg who demanded that he hire Fox, and added that she may not have been the most professional actress on set. I thought Michael Bay was someone you don't want to be on bad terms with, but if the real issue is Steven Spielberg, that's even worse. And at number 2 is Charlie Sheen. He has a list of things that all play a factor on why his career came to an end. One of them was his ridiculous and totally inappropriate behavior during his interview with ABC when he confessed to still being on drugs. Actually, when he asked if he still uses drugs, his exact response was, "I am on a drug. It's called Charlie Sheen. It is not available. If you try it once, you will die. Your face will melt off and your children will weep over your exploded body." He went on to talk about sleeping with prostitutes and said that they are the best at what they do and has no problem admitting that part of his sex life. The entire interview is manic and whack, but no one could ever forget his famous line when asked about how he survived his huge drug binges. He responded with, "I have tiger blood in my veins." Since then, it's been an ongoing joke, along with his career. However, rumor has it that he has sobered up and it's possible he will be making a comeback. Taking the number 1 spot on our list is Tara Reid, only because it was so shocking. The sweet blonde shocked the world after showing up drunk to an interview, or so it appeared. Back in August 2018, she did an interview with Today Extra on Australia's Channel 9 to promote her movie The Last Sharknado. But throughout the interview, she was slurring her words, spoke very quietly, and often just trailed off. When you watch it, there's moments when you feel like she might actually fall asleep.
It really makes sense from the first one.
The interview, rumors started that she was drinking again, which was a problem from her past. She released a statement afterwards, not giving any kind of reasoning for her weird behavior, but insisted that people have no reason to worry about her health. However, people were still very much worried.
In at number 10, Quentin Tarantino.
So it's my job to try and ask you to.
And I'm shutting your butt down.
And that's entirely your.
What a line! I'm shutting your butt down. Quentin Tarantino was having none of this interviewer's questions, but still tried to go along with it. He kept his cool for about 3 minutes before the gloves started to come off. The journalist's name is Krishnan Guru Murthy, and he has become notorious for asking celebrities the most awkward and really big questions about themselves, their past, and their work. Stuff that would be better suited for a 3-hour podcast or an episode of 60 Minutes. However, during these press junkets where they're only doing the interview to sell their film, it's hardly the place or time. In at number 9, Cara Delevingne. Let's just say her dry British humor was not really received by these happy-go-lucky morning news anchors at CBS Sacramento. At the start of the interview, she was asked some very dumb questions. For example, the film Paper Towns was based on a book, so they asked her if she had read the book, and then immediately after made a snide comment about her probably not having enough time to read. Cara obviously takes offense to this judging by her body language, but instead decides to flip it into a joke, saying that she didn't even read the script, just winged the whole thing. The interviewers actually take this as factual for a moment before her laughing finally cuts the tension. And that's not even the most awkward part of this interview though.
I think it probably is us. Well, then on that note,
We figured as much.
We'll let you go then. How about that? We'll let you go take a little nap, maybe get a Red Bull. How about that?
After one interviewer asked her why she isn't as excited as her other interviews, she remarks that it's very early and that she thought it was going well, so again, jokingly, she says it must be you. And the interviewer in the middle, like, oh my god, she sounded so bitter. That line of, well, we'll let you go take a little nap and have a Red Bull, how about that? Yes, how about that level of professional journalism? Good job, Good Morning Sacramento. In at number 8, Kourtney Kardashian. After her sister Kim was robbed in Paris, Today Extra, an Australian news outlet, was interviewing Kourtney via satellite from Los Angeles.
Okay.
They asked her how Kim was doing following this traumatic event, but suddenly Kourtney's face just freezes. You then can sort of hear what sounds like her publicist saying, "Do not answer that question."
Looks like Kourtney doesn't really want to go there with
I think
that
she's
question.
blanking me. I think she's totally...
The interviewer then goes on a bit of a rant saying that she could simply say her sister is doing fine, as they too speculate that she was told to be quiet. However, she then does answer the question on her own, saying, "She's not doing great, I think we're all still shaken up." And her response to what appeared to be her blanking was that the audio from their end wasn't coming through. In at number 7, Jesse Eisenberg.
Do you know the comedian Carrot Top?
Yes. Horrible.
You were like the Carrot Top of interviewers. No, and it's a good thing. It's
I'm
a
gonna
good
go
thing.
cry now.
No, don't cry now.
While promoting the film Now You See Me, Jesse Eisenberg just could not contain his utter disdain for this interview. Right out of the gate, he was on the offensive. The interviewer refers to Morgan Freeman as simply Freeman, for which Jesse takes offense to, oddly enough. He then, as you saw, remarks she's the Carrot Top of interviewing, which insults the interviewer so bad that she hurries Jesse to complete a magic trick just so that they can wrap it up. And the entire interview is just one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever seen, and this is only number 7 on the list. Trust me though, if you haven't watched this full interview, you must. You must do it. It is just a terrible exchange back and forth between an actor and a vlogger, essentially. In at number 6, Samuel L. Jackson. When you are interviewing a celebrity as big as Samuel L. Jackson, it's imperative that you do your homework. You know, like learn his name. When Sam Jackson was promoting the RoboCop remake, he was asked about a recent Super Bowl commercial he did. Sam replies, "What Super Bowl commercial?" and then hits KTLA reporter Sam Rubin with this.
What Super Bowl commercial?
Oh, you know what? I've been my mistake.
See, you're as crazy as the people on Twitter.
Jackson then proceeds to say, "I'm not Lawrence Fishburne. We don't all look alike. We may be all black and famous, but we all don't look alike." And Rubin repeatedly apologizes for this very public faux pas, but the damage is done and this just got super awkward. Jackson doesn't let up though. He questions Sam Rubin, saying, "You're the entertainment reporter?" To make his point known, Samuel L. Jackson posted this image on Twitter of him wearing a t-shirt that says he's not Lawrence Fishburne, just to avoid any further confusion. In at number 5, Jim Carrey. At the New York Fashion Week in 2017, Jim Carrey made a rare appearance, and while walking down the red carpet, he did his best to avoid an interview with E! News. At first he tried to kind of twirl around a few times and not really stand still, hoping that would work, but she was persistent. Carrey then says he wanted to find the most meaningless event that he could go to, and that's how he ended up there. The interviewer, trying to keep the integrity of this event high, claims that it's a celebration of icons, for which Jim says, "Icons don't exist. I don't believe in personalities. I don't believe you exist. But there is a wonderful fragrance in the air." And before departing from this awkward interview, he leaves her with this little nugget of truth.
Is relevant, that's not that
Here's
uplifting.
the thing, it's not our world.
None
That's
of this
the
is
key.
real?
Nope.
So you're just passing
We don't
through.
matter.
In at number 4, Dakota Johnson. This without a doubt has to be the cringe heard around the world. We got to watch the live falling out between Dakota Johnson and her mother Melanie Griffith on the red carpet of the Oscars. Oh, the Oscars, please insert fake laughter here. Man, Hollywood is so fake. Just because the cameras are rolling, they fake laugh their way through this entirely awkward interview. And the whole thing started off on a really bad note. The interviewer praises Melanie while repeatedly calling Dakota her little girl, which she is, but it just downplays how successful she's been on her own. Then when her mother is asked if she's seen 50 Shades of Grey, her mom outright says that she wouldn't watch the movie, which clearly hurts her daughter regardless of the content and the positive reviews. A kid is always looking for that recognition from their parents. In at number 3, Robert Downey Jr. This guy again. You remember that interviewer from earlier that was just a little too pushing? Well, he's back again, but this time with RDJ. And didn't I tell you folks earlier that he was known for just having the worst interviewers? I mean, this guy should be questioning politicians, not actors, about their upcoming movies. He goes way too deep with Robert Downey Jr. in this interview, to the point where Robert Downey Jr. just says, "You know what? We're done here."
What are we doing?
Well, I'm just asking questions, that's all.
Right.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you guys.
Oof. That slapped so hard it felt like a movie. Speaking of slaps, when Downey stands up to leave, he gives Krishnan a very hard pat on the shoulder as if to say, "Good work, you dummy." The reason why he got so upset was because these questions virtually came out of left field. He went from asking him about superhero movies to Robert's, let's say, tumultuous past. In at number 2, Tom Hardy. If you thought that was hard to watch, just wait until you see this awkward interview with Tom Hardy. At the Toronto Film Festival during a press conference for his film Legend, he's asked by an LGBT news organization about his sexuality, claiming that while his character is upfront about it, Tom on the other hand has been much more ambiguous about his sexuality, which leads to this kind of terrible exchange. It's the epitome of awkwardness.
Are you asking me about my sexuality?
Sure.
Why?
Why?
Thank you.
Okay.
Why indeed. That thank you he gives at the end too, oof, I felt that. Last but not least, at our number 1 spot, Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld is one of the most successful comedians of all time. His show Seinfeld was on television for 9 years, and Jerry's decision to go out on top proved to be one of the most lucrative deals ever for this comedian. Since the final episode, the show has generated over $3 billion in repeat fees, but for whatever reason, Larry King thought they cancelled the show. Even though Larry King worked for CNN, he wasn't known for his hard-hitting questions, yet for whatever reason, he decided to use an interview promoting Jerry Seinfeld's B movie to ask him if Seinfeld had been cancelled.
Is this still CNN? I was the #1 show on television, Larry. Do you know who I am?
And you can see in Seinfeld's body language how frustrated he gets when Larry even tries to insinuate this. Jerry does not back down though and immediately goes on the attack, telling King that he was the #1 show on television before adding the very crass line of, "Do you know who I am? What's the deal with you not knowing who I am?" With that, let's check out some of your comments from the video titled Top 10 Most Dangerous Movies Ever Made. Kaisa Joey London says, "I thought being in a movie would be cool. I was wrong." Don't worry, I thought the same thing. Movie sets are either incredibly boring and repetitive or incredibly dangerous. But it's definitely cool after the movie is made, but during the filming, not so much. Speaking from what little experience I have. Very boring. Brianna Wilkinson says, "Johnny Rogers, what is your favorite action movie?" My favorite action movie is Live Free or Die Hard because Bruce Willis and Justin Long can do no wrong. Colin Featherston says, "The most dangerous movie ever made was Showgirls." The only thing that makes that movie dangerous is the damage it does to your brain cells while watching it. Funny comment though, very funny. Carrie Baxter says, I can see there being a possible part 2 of this, as I wouldn't be surprised if there have been other movies that were dangerous for one reason or another. I'm sure there's gonna be a ton more dangerous movies and some that we missed, so be ready for a part 2. Vanessa Stegall says, good thing Jason Statham got out of that situation alive.
At number 10, we have Tom Cruise's bizarre 2005 Today Show interview, where Matt Lauer asks the actor about his Brooke Shields' use of antidepressants comment. Everyone's favorite Scientology poster boy completely flipped out by calling Matt glib and stating he didn't understand psychiatry as Tom does and only communicates it. Therefore, Matt shouldn't be speaking on things he doesn't understand. The Church of Scientology has been notoriously known to be opposed to psychiatry, by the way. However, Tom's press tour incident also came with Matt questioning if his KDPDA scene was a publicity stunt, and the damage to Tom's reputation from that point was enough to have him in a single movie per year, until he reemerged on the public's good side with his 2008 role in Tropic Thunder. At that point, he was no longer publicly speaking about Scientology though. Matt has since admitted to Howard Stern that a publicist of Tom's had rung him prior to a segment airing with attempts to remove that portion of the sit-down, and Cruise had also issued an apology to him. At number 9, we have the formerly popular band 5 Seconds of Summer, who managed to alienate both their fans and the general public from a single Rolling Stone interview. In a December 2015 published piece, Michael Clifford was hungover from the performance the night before the interview, where he dished that they were surrounded by a load of phony people. He also detailed how they partied with Justin Bieber despite remarks that the Canadian singer allegedly hated them. Their drummer Aston Irwin further pushed that their female-dominated fanbase had them needing to prove that they were a quote real band and not just doing it for the girls. However, frontman Luke Hemmings counteracted this claim by over-explaining that the 4 young men were constantly placed in situations on their tour bus where they were surrounded by a lot of girls. He also suggested that the possibilities were quote endless when they were asked if they sleep with multiple people at once on the same night. It's safe to say we all know why we haven't heard much of them since. At number 8, we have the 2008 R. Kelly interview that flew his career further off the rails amidst his allegations of inappropriately messing around with aged girls. Journalist Tour sat down with R. Kelly, where he outrightly asked during part of the interview if Kelly favored teenage girls. In response, Kelly questioned how old Tour was referencing, and a visibly taken aback Tour doubled down with clarification of what he meant. Kelly had to be sure though, so he asked if Tour was talking about 19-year-olds specifically, to which Tour responded confirming that he meant that and younger. R. Kelly then went on a spiel about how he has friends who were underage or freshly new to adulthood, but that he's allegedly never done anything to nor with them, and that the journalist shouldn't listen to people on his team who he previously fired. Tour later took to a Daily Beast interview to speak on his R. Kelly media run-in, where he admitted that upon BET's airing, R. Kelly's team demanded it be wiped off the face of the internet, but it was seemingly too late to stop the downward spiral that was R. Kelly's career. At number 7, we have the awkwardest Tom Hiddleston interview to exist, following his February 2000 GC dish, where he discussed his then split from singer Taylor Swift. In regards to this, Tom complimented his and Taylor's relationship immensely, speaking about how they were lovely together and their relationship was indeed real. Tom was even asked about his infamous I Heart TS tank, where he explained it stemmed from a friendly game which later became a joke between their friend group at the time. Tom was apparently extremely earnest during this interview, which reportedly landed him at his interviewer's hotel room door at 6 a.m. to clarify the points he made about Taylor during the interview, detailing that he was quote crushed by the end of their relationship. Since Tom's roles did in fact dry up, aside from his Loki reprisals, his 2019 Skull Island role, and his occasional voiceover work. At number 6, we have Jim Carrey and his famous wallflower and overwhelmingly dark interview style. There isn't just one to chalk this up to, rather plenty, but the greatest example is most likely his New York Fashion Week interview from the Harper Bazaar's Icons party. The multiple questions on icons at the event caused Jim to calmly spiral, and the reactions of the interviewer were nothing short of amusing. The awkward event in question harbored viral-worthy comments to prompts, like Jim saying stuff like, "There's no meaning to any of this, so I wanted to find the most meaningless thing that I could come to, and here I am. This is just the absolute lowest aiming possibility that we could come up with. I don't believe in icons, I don't believe in personalities. I believe we're a field of energy dancing for itself, and I don't care." Much like other interviews in the past, such as Jim's Iowa University of Management 2014 meeting, he's made similar remarks which turned heads. Overall though, to the reporter's best effort, she could not save the interview interview from all the meme-worthy moments it soon took on. And despite his former success, we haven't really heard much of Jim nowadays, have we? At number 5, we have Jesse Eisenberg and his once socially awkward title being spun into that of a jerk in the wake of his Univision and Associated Press interviews. When he spoke with Associated Press, he detailed his Comic-Con experience to be difficult, even going so far as to label it as, quote, some kind of side. The highly insensitive remark obviously raised some horror, and when he attempted to clear his name, it fell on deaf ears. Moreover, his clarification came with the words, "I'm a normal person who has normal sensory experiences, so Comic-Con was very overwhelming for me." And let's just say people were not here for it. As for his Univision chit-chat, while promotions for Now You See Me were occurring, Jesse referred to the interviewer as the Carrot Top of interviewers, which many deemed as straight up rude. If you don't know, Carrot Top is a comedian who the interviewer labeled as, quote, horrible. So I'm sure you can see how that was insulting. Anyway, despite Jesse's need to prove his dislike for the process of interviews, he should probably rein in some points from his fellow industry buddy Kristen Stewart, who's expressed her own feelings of not enjoying public press appearances before finding her own path. At number 4, we have Paris Hilton's startling 2011 ABC interview, which showed proof of her still seemingly viewing herself as the top reality TV star worldwide, despite the media princess being overshadowed by her former assistant turned bestie Kim Kardashian. It's clear throughout the sit-down that Paris attempted to remain calm, but the grilling of the reporter, seemingly intent on discounting her worth, most likely set Paris off. When she was questioned on whether or not she believed her time as a reality star was donezo, Paris took that as her cue to exit stage left, leaving the set altogether. Some say she must not have been ready to accept what the world apparently already knows, that her chapter had officially reached its end long before her interview. Yikes. At number 3, we have the Australian newspaper interview with Denzel Washington, who seemed to make it apparent he didn't have extra time to deal with the press. His endless amount of sighs even caused him to go instantly viral. Reportedly, the interviewer flew miles and miles to do a press junket with Denzel, but at first it seemed he'd be a no-show. Thankfully, he did end up coming to the press junket, which is common in the industry to get quick dishes on celebrity to gain more buzz for them and the companies the interviewers are under. Understandably, this process is referred to as awkward and repetitive, and well, Denzel seemed to be no different. And while some actors are good sports, others like Julia Roberts and Tommy Lee Jones don't try nearly as hard. Apparently, Denzel joined this list shortly after. In the end, the interviewer's charm and persistence managed to get him engaged and somewhat more responsive than the daunting, cold exterior Denzel seemed to exude at first. Denzel even mentioned wanting to watch a suggested clip from the interviewer. But despite this, a year later, someone uploaded the interview to YouTube with the tagline of "arrogant rude interview" that's been watched millions of times. Unfortunately for Denzel, this just wasn't one of his best, but thankfully, the reporter still ended up having a great time overall. At number 2, we have Robert Pattinson's Twilight press frenzy, where it was obvious Robert was against any conversations regarding his then rumored relationship with his former co-star and ex-girlfriend Kristen Stewart. Naturally though, this became the burning red question in every media outlet, as everyone was clearly itching to ask Robert what their status was at the time. One of these people included Ryan Seacrest, who questioned him on his on-air show about what the ground of their relationship was. Robert was prompted to flee by his agent, and surprisingly, he did just that. In conclusion, Robert is no stranger to being around the center of awkward interviews, which clearly makes it harder for the general public to look at him in a more positive aspect. At number 1, we have the Kanye West comment that nearly ended this man's whole career, and that was his revealed thoughts on slavery. Warning, this may anger you. Anyway, Kanye served up quite the controversy and massive backlash in the media when he took to a TMZ live interview to make a statement that pissed off the whole world. The public outcry forced people to question his mental stability again, and the comment in question was that he genuinely believes slavery is a choice. His views on the oppressive system were ignited not even a week following his Make America Great Again stunt, where he professed his admiration for then US President Donald Trump. On the show, he outlined his decision behind wearing the infamous baseball cap, which had since become a trademark in Trump's MAGA political movement. The conversation took a left though when Kanye spoke on slavery, where he was accompanied by conservative commentator Candace Owens, who is outspoken in the details of the centuries-long African American struggles of spending their lives shackled in servitude. His comment was of course met with stunned silence, which included the media outlet's founder Harvey. Kanye explained, quote, "You hear about slavery for 400 years, that sounds like a choice. You were there for 400 years and it was all of y'all? It's like we're meant to be in prison. I like the word prison because slavery goes too direct to the idea of blacks. Prison is something that unites us as one race. One of the TMZ staff, Van, called West out to take responsibility for his words, where he ranted, "While you're living the life that you've earned by being a genius, the rest of us in society have to deal with these threats to our lives, with the marginalization that has come from the 400 years of slavery that you said for our people was a choice. Frankly, I'm disappointed, appalled, and unbelievably hurt by the fact that you have morphed into something that, to me, is not real." West issued an apology to Van before embracing him, and later wrote a statement on Twitter to further clarify his points. In it, the rapper detailed, "To make myself clear, of course I know that slaves did not get shackled and put on a boat by free will. My point is for us to have stayed in that position even though the numbers were on our side means that we were mentally enslaved. The reason why I brought up the 400 years point is because we can't be mentally imprisoned for another 400 years. We need free thought now."
Number 10, Beyonce. Wendy Williams once sent her fans on a frenzy after she decided to mock the way Beyonce spoke in her HBO documentary Life is But a Dream. Taking to the Wendy Williams show, what started off to be a sweet moment when Williams gushed over the star's music. It quickly turned sour after things got a little awkward when the audience started to turn on her after she said Beyonce couldn't talk. During the episode, Wendy would say, "I am a Beyonce fan. I'm going to be watching this documentary even if she doesn't introduce us to new stuff. I'm watching because fortunately, one of the TVs in our kitchen has closed captions, so I'll be able to understand what she says. You know, Beyonce can't talk. Beyonce sounds like she has a 5th grade education. She can't talk." When the audience started to turn against Wendy, she would then continue on with her rant by saying, "Excuse me, I just said I was a fan, but we have to call a spade a spade. I mean, honestly, and we really have to do the closed captioning just for times like that." Number 9, Ariana Grande. In 2015, Wendy would land herself in hot water with a number of Ariana Grande's fans after she made a few controversial comments about her. The talk show host found herself on the rampant end of criticism after she seemingly body shamed the singer on the Wendy Williams show. The audience initially laughed after the television personality star said, "She's 21, she'll forever look 12. Things would soon take a sharp turn when she said, "And I don't mean that in a good way. It's nice to look younger than you are, but when you look too young and then you're short, well, she's only 4'11. I don't look at her as like a woman." Her comments would soon prompt the hashtag cancel Wendy Williams to trend on Twitter, and fans of Ariana band together to try and get her show taken off the air. And even Miley Cyrus would take to the comments and say, "Standing up for Ariana Grande by using the hashtag cancel Wendy Williams show is not petty. It is showing people like Wendy Williams that it is not okay for people to be belittled in any way. We all know that Ariana will never say something back to Wendy for fear of it becoming another tabloid headline. So we are here to stand up for the one we love and we will never back down." Hey guys, are you liking this video so far? If so, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Number 8, TMZ. One thing about Wendy is that she never tippy toes around anything. So when she sat down with TMZ to talk about her ongoing medical struggles and starting a new career, she sparked some major concern among her fans. When the star joined TMZ for a live interview, she would tell the outlet why she was turning her back on TV, and instead choosing to produce her own podcast. And for her, it really came down to time and money. Things then took a bizarre turn when she made a bizarre revelation. She shared what her battle with lymphedema was like, having no issue holding up her foot to reveal just how swollen it was from the condition. She would go on to tell viewers that she can only feel about 5% of her feet, but she also explained how she wasn't going to let it slow her down. But from her slurred speech to her shifty eyes, Wendy appeared as though she was trying almost too hard to concentrate on what she was trying to say. At one point, she was just unknowingly repeating and even explaining the word podcast. It was pretty concerning. Number 7, CNN. In an interview back in 2022, Wendy would admit that she was reluctant to remotely film the Wendy Williams show after watching other TV hosts work from their home. In an interview with CNN, Wendy would say that her competitors at home look disgusting, before she explained to the news outlet that she eventually gave in and decided to film at her apartment after having a few conversations with her production team. At first, not having a live studio audience felt weird, but then she remembered her years working as a radio personality. She said, "I've so enjoyed that, but it is much easier for me as a host to be here at home with no audience, because it's always been about description. You know, I've been a radio host longer than I've been a TV host, so yes, right, thank God for the radio." But the fact that she said other TV hosts look disgusting when compared to her working at home was just a little too far. Number 6, Alyssa Milano. Alyssa Milano once had a disagreement over how women choose to feed their young ones in public. After the outspoken breastfeeding advocate had a dispute with the TV host on Wendy's show, Wendy confessed to her that she did not share her views on breastfeeding in public. She said, "I don't don't need to see that. She then went on to say that she would personally take her kid to the car before allowing people to see her feed them in public. She said, "I just don't want to." Alyssa then suggested that society thinks too much of this when it comes to things like this, as it only happens during a particular amount of time. Alyssa then drew big applause from the audience after she went on to close the discussion and said, "You're lucky the baby is not here. I'd whip them out and feed him right on your show." She went on to note that breastfeeding is an amazing process and that women are the most perfect machines ever made. Number 5, Michael Jackson. The Leaving Neverland documentary highlighted two people's stories when it came to Michael Jackson making unwelcome advances on them. It left fans, supporters, and fellow celebrities on opposite sides of the fence. Back in 2019, Wendy would even weigh in on the issue when she offered up her opinions on the 4-hour documentary, denouncing all the claims that had been made on her talk show. When introducing the hot topic to her audience members, Wendy didn't bite her tongue. She went on to share her thoughts. With Michael being accused of engaging in intimate relationships with people much younger than him, the radio host went on to reveal that she believes these revived accusations were brought into play for an ulterior motive. She said, "I do believe that this is a money grab for families, but with the topic being such a sensitive issue, many fans called her out as it just shouldn't have been spoken on TV. And if you didn't see what she said, please go and look it up because it was honestly just too gross to hear." Number 4, Marcus Scribner. Back in 2018, Wendy decided to go straight for the birds and the bees conversation when she sat down with actor Marcus Scribner, who is known for his role on the hit show Blackish. With Marcus being a relatively private person, it was rumored that he was in a relationship in 2020, and he was not one to give away much about his personal life. Marcus appeared as if he didn't want to share any details about the mystery woman in his life, but many fans were curious to know all the details about everyone he is dating. Fortunately for fans, Marcus would briefly touch on the topic when he made an appearance on the Wendy Williams show. He told Wendy, "Currently, it's complicated. We've got stuff going on. I'll leave it at that." He then refused to add any details, even after Wendy asked him if he has ever had a bird and the bee intimacy level with anyone. Feeling uncomfortable by her question, Marcus would go on to say, "Wendy is trying to hit me with the difficult questions. I'll leave it a mystery for the audience. However, that's just a creepy question for any 50-year-old to ask an 18-year-old. Number 3, Drea Michelle. When Drea made an appearance on Wendy's show, she became a hot topic in the tabloids, as Drea really handled all of Wendy's digs like a champ. And I personally would put Wendy in her place if she ever asked me some of the questions that she asked Drea. In the interview, she would pretty much imply that Drea gets around when she went on to ask her, "How many basketball players have you been with?" Wendy then tried to embarrass her even further in an attempt to shame her for her intimate choices. She turned to the audience and said, "If you don't watch the show, that seems like Wendy you're crazy, but she's been this girl that's gotten around." Dre would then clear up the rumors by saying it's been over 3 years since she's dated any basketball players, and that she wasn't afraid of her past as anything you do in your past can be cleaned up. Number 2, Dionne Warwick. In December of 2020, Wendy would come under fire after she made fun of Dionne Warwick. The star, who had been tweeting about artist stage names, would say that she has never been involved in the Twitter sphere. Instead, she watches TV, sings songs, reads books, socializes, or moisturizes her hair. Before going on to say, "I think if you're a person of a particular age, you need to be on social media and you need to get down sometimes and talk to these kids. Not to talk to them, but you really do need someone young in your family just to make sure that you're coming off correct." She then responded to Wendy's statement on Twitter, saying, "A friend alerted me that Wendy Williams was spending a lot of not nice time speaking to me. I tuned into her show to catch the last few minutes of her speaking about me, and as in the past, she seems not to be able to speak without making malicious comments. My hope is that my name will refrain from being spoken or thought of by her, as this conversation was held a few years ago, letting her know that there would not be any need for her to say my name. I don't believe anyone has to be mean to get noticed." And coming in at number 1, Keke Palmer. The actress is well known for being outspoken, and that's why we love her. So when Wendy tried to discuss the incident that surrounds Keke and Trey Songz, it would prompt her to tell Williams directly that she disagreed with how the host presented the story. After stopping by on the talk show to promote her new book, Keke would bring up the incident with Williams while putting her on blast for how she chose to defend Songz. She went on to say, "I will say, Wendy, I would have loved to turn on your show and see you be a little more compassionate and a little less accusatory." After a bit more awkward conversation, Keke went on to remind her that it matters how hosts and other late night profile figures speak about certain issues, and said it wasn't right to tell girls it was okay for them to feel weird and awkward in situations, and that people need to start saying no when things don't feel right, because it's okay to say no.
Starting off our list today at number 10, we have Isaac Mizrahi. While Isaac Mizrahi was acting as an interviewer for E! On the red carpet for the Golden Globes, he would have a troubling interview with Scarlett Johansson. Scarlett, who is attending as a supporting actress nominee for Match Point, would be left feeling shocked after Isaac decided to touch her chest in the interview because he wanted to know if the actress had a bra under her stunning red dress. As he gave it a quick squeeze, he would then say, "I'm just taking notes for next time I make a..." Then he would be cut off by Scarlett, who said, "What is going on?" And then she said, "Absolutely, take all the notes you want." The actress then later said, "Oh my god," while Isaac did later apologize for offending anyone. The Academy of Motion Pictures of Arts then had to issue their own statement when they said, "I can predict we would be extraordinary angry if that happened on our red carpet. I cannot predict what we would do afterwards." Number 9. Kesha. Remember that time when Jerry Seinfeld savagely refused to hug Kesha during a red carpet interview? Not once, not twice, but 3 painful times. It was truly the stuff of nightmares, but watching it from the comfort of our own homes made for some great laughs. Although Kesha was silent about the issue for some time, she would come out in 2017 to break the silence on what happened after she rudely interrupted Jerry in an interview to ask him for a hug. Jerry would then later sit down for an interview with AJ Calloway where he explained that he didn't hug Kesha because he simply didn't know her and admitted, "I'm 63. I don't know every pop star. I have to meet someone to say hello. Gotta start somewhere." For Kesha's part, she remained pretty quiet on the whole issue as she was presumably recovering from all the overwhelming embarrassment of being rejected so publicly like that. However, a day after the video went viral, she did post an Instagram photo of her cat with some pretty suggestive hashtags. Hey my little peaches, are you liking this video so far? If so, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and, subscribe to the channel. Coming number 8, we have Tommy Lee Jones. When Joan and Melissa Rivers were asked who their least favorite person to interview on the red carpet was, they didn't have to think twice before responding, and they both ended up saying Tommy Lee Jones. In 2013, HuffPost Live asked the famous mother and daughter duo about their worst celebrity interview, and Melissa immediately said Tommy Lee Jones, to which Joan responded by saying, "Oh, without a question." HuffPost then went on to ask the pair to elaborate on the assertion, to which Melissa went on to know, "He's at the top of everybody's list. He doesn't want to be there, he's unhappy doing the red carpet, and he's going to make everyone else around him just as unhappy in the experience." Joan then would go on to sum up the issue nicely by saying, "Jones went to Harvard and is very impressed by that accomplishment." She then went on to say, "We all went to Ivy League schools, calm down." Number 7. John Travolta. In 2015, John Travolta once again became the talk of the Oscars after he had a pretty off encounter with Scarlett Johansson that had some of us scratching our heads. Scarlett, who co-starred with John in the film A Love Story for Bobby Long, told the Associated Press that the picture of him kissing her on the red carpet was taken out of context. She then went on to say there is nothing strange, creepy, or inappropriate about John Travolta. The image that is circulating is unfortunate, still framed from a live action encounter that was a very sweet and total welcome. She then went on to add that the photo did not reflect the live moment and that we were all being misguided and misinformed, and that she hadn't seen John in some years and it was always a pleasure to be greeted by him, yet her face in the photo said otherwise. Number 6. Ryan Seacrest. In 2019, Grammy viewers would slam Ryan Seacrest for his awkward Lady Gaga red carpet interview. When Ryan tried to interview the superstar, he didn't so much ask her questions as he just chose to speak to her. And when Lady Gaga did try to speak, Ryan would just end up cutting her off without even giving her the chance to speak properly. He then went on to tell her that she should be performing at the Oscars, for which she is a multiple nominee for, and she responded by saying, "That was like, answer my question, but I'm not asking one." Ryan then tried to recover from the interview, but then made an awkward joke about him not asking her questions before saying they were cutting to break. Gaga was a good sport in handling the awkward interview, playing along with his joke that carried on for way too long as there was a delay in going to the advertisements. Before the interview was over, she did pull a host of awkward faces before eventually hugging Ryan and leaving. Number 5. David Lee Roth. In 2019, David Lee Roth had a pretty bizarre red carpet interview that taught us all that you can either wear all sorts of outlandish things or nothing, and you can also be as provocative as you want in the name of artistry, and flaunt your questionable decisions all over social media. The king of being completely insane during the red carpet interview will always go to David Lee Roth. David, who is set to perform at the Billboard Music Music Awards was being interviewed by E! on the red carpet special. During the interview, he would start out on solid footing, discussing Van Halen's dance influence and how what they did in the 80s has informed today's pop music, which was okay. But things took a quick turn when he decided to quickly go off the rails, and somehow West Side Story, Lowriders, and David's abundance of black and Hispanic friends all came up. The whole interview was just him inspiring to get on Miley's level of interviews, and it was just completely weird. Go give it a watch. Number 4, Tiffany Haddish. When Entertainment Tonight's Lauren Zima seemed to have accidentally called Tiffany Haddish's new Oscar after party dress a costume change, things quickly went south, and when Tiffany fired back at Lauren saying, "I'm not wearing a costume, I'm wearing Dolce & Gabbana," the actress was clearly not done firing back at the reporter when she then went on to educate her on costumes and outfits by saying, "It's called an evening gown, darling. No one is paying for this. I paid for it. It's custom. Thank you." That's when the reporter jokingly announced it was her time to pass away, pretended to faint in an attempt to ease the tension, and Tiffany's response, may I add, was, "This is what fame looks like, this is what success looks like, this is what money looks like," and yeah, the moment is just as brutal to watch as you would expect. And take notes, because if it's not Halloween, it's not a costume, and you definitely don't want to make the same mistake unless you want to be embarrassed on the red carpet by some of Hollywood's biggest stars. Coming number 3, we have Jack Harlow. Jack Harlow once left Emma Chamberlain in a pretty awkward red carpet interview. That became one of the most hilarious and viral moments of 2022 when Emma, who is a big YouTuber, was interviewing Jack Harlow for Vogue. What started off as a pretty interesting interview would then randomly turn a different way when Jack decided out of nowhere he was going to hit her with a totally random "love you," and then he quickly turned away and left the interview. Now you're probably wondering what happened next. Well, as the rapper walked away, the camera would zoom in on Emma and it would give us a glorious image of her staring into space and questioning her entire reality, which was honestly a 10 out of 10 reaction, but considering their age difference, the gesture was just completely weird. Number 2, we have Sutton Strachey. Okay, we all know that there's no one more dramatic than the Real Housewives cast, as they always seem to do shady things at the most random times, like the time Sutton Strachey showed up to the People's Choice Awards in 2022, and just like the shows, she brought some drama. When the interviewer asked her if she would like Lisa to return to the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, the reality TV personality definitely didn't have anything nice to say. She then chose to look at the reporter in the camera in total silence, and she stayed like this until the reporter moved on to the next question. It was a question she actually wanted to respond to. The reporter then went on to the next question by saying anyways. But just before, if you caught a look at Sutton, you would see that she was baffled and she looked pretty mean and scary to the point it would have caused any reporter to end the interview and move on to the next star. It's safe to say that Sutton doesn't really like Lisa and doesn't want her to return to the show anytime soon. And coming in number 1 today, we have Sacha Baron Cohen. When he showed up to the red carpet dressed as his character from The Dictator, the look was completely pushing boundaries as he proceeded on the red carpet accompanied by female bodyguards and an urn which he stated was filled with Kim Jong-un's ashes. While the whole interview and actions were very off-putting and not really professional, things took a quick turn to the worse when he decided to accidentally dump the material all over Ryan Seacrest's Burberry tux. While everyone was shocked at what actually happened, Ryan Seacrest actually showed the world what a true professional he is, and he brushed it off. And he brushed it off quite literally, may I add. But still, the interview was pretty disturbing, and Sasha shouldn't be playing sensitive games like that.
At number 10, Mark Summers. When it comes to talk shows, sometimes you can never predict what's going to happen. These shows are often used to catch up with a celebrity and just talk about life and whatnot, but sometimes these conversations can turn into brawls when the wrong thing is said, and this is pretty much what happened between Burt Reynolds and Mark Summers in 1994 when they were both guests on Jay Leno's talk show. The two men got into a pretty heated brawl after some jokes were made that rubbed them the wrong way. Essentially, Mark Summers made a comment about how he was still married while Burt at the time was going through a divorce, and it made him pretty upset. In retaliation, Burt threw some water at Mark, and that's what sparked the fight. It gets to the point where Jay Leno just can't keep the show together because his guests were fighting so much, and producers went so far as to bring out pies for Mark and Burt to make it look like this fight was staged. After this, people got talking, and some people came to the conclusion that this brawl was uncalled for, and since Mark technically started it, he felt the most backlash. Soon fans started to notice that Mark just wasn't making it big in Hollywood anymore, and some believe that this bad press that came from this fight is what caused Mark's career to suffer. At number 9, Tom Cruise. Now I know you guys are going to come for me in the comments saying, Brie, Tom Cruise's career isn't destroyed, he's doing just fine. Yes, I know that. However, his career and public image did take a beating after his interview with Matt Lauer in 2005, where he made comments about mental health, psychiatry, and for his criticisms of actress Brooke Shields. All of this was caused by Tom's belief in Scientology and the fact that he doesn't believe in medication or therapy. While on the Today Show, Tom and Matt had the discussion about how the actor criticized Brooke Shields for taking antidepressants for her postpartum depression, and he tried to shut down anything that Matt would say to defend psychiatry, also going on to say, quote, "You don't know the history of psychiatry, I do," end quote. Between that and his stance on Scientology, he lost a lot of popularity, leading to some box office bombs that affected his career. Now before I carry on with the video, I would like to take a moment to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and also check out my gaming channel Viper Girl if Minecraft content piques your interest. I've got lots of fun stuff going on over there and I upload every single day, so come check it out and subscribe while you're there. At number 8, Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen was riding a pretty good wave back when he was the star of 2.5 Men, but after doing an interview on 2020, things took a turn and his career pretty much got destroyed. Everything sort of came crashing down for him after that interview, where he ranted about the 2.5 Men creator Chuck Lorre. This interview was pretty chaotic and all over the place, with Charlie waving his hands about frantically and even going so far as to call Chuck a turd and a clown. This became a media feeding frenzy as they labeled him as crazy, and they just pushed him to his breaking point. As a result of some of the comments Charlie made during the interview, he was fired from 2.5 Men, and that was a pretty big deal since he had been pulling in about $1 million per episode. The actor pretty much hit rock bottom after that, making this a lesson to remind you to watch what you say. At number 7, Wilmer Valderrama. When That 70s Show actor Wilmer Valderrama was a guest on Howard Stern's show back in 2006, he had the potential to use the experience to his advantage and help his career, but instead he did the opposite and caused some damage instead. While on the show, the actor shared a little too much information with Stern and exposed a lot of the details about people he had slept with. Wilmer revealed that he had slept with Mandy Moore and even described the experience even though no one asked for that. He also rated his relationship with actress Jennifer Love Hewitt even though, once again, nobody asked. Wilmer really just exposed a lot of personal information about himself, but faced scrutiny because of how the people he talked about were impacted. A lot of people said that the comments he made were uncalled for, uncomfortable, and inappropriate. Years later in 2010, the actor apologized for what he said during the interview, but the damage was already done. His career wasn't the same, and the people he slept with were pretty mad about having their business exposed like that too. At number 6, Addison Rae. Back in April of this year, TikTok star Addison Rae faced backlash after her appearance on The Tonight Show. The influencer was invited on the show to perform a handful of viral TikTok dances, and though it seemed innocent and unproblematic, this is the internet and there is always a problem. Addison, as well as Jimmy Fallon, started facing backlash because no credit was given to the people who created the dances that Addison performed. A lot of people watched this bit on the show and thought that it wasn't fair that Addison got to come on to the show and essentially take credit for the work of other TikTok creators, and so fans took to the internet to advocate for those who lost out on the notoriety of their dances. The Tonight Show producers, as well as Fallon himself, recognized that they deserved to have their voices heard, and so they got their opportunity, but for Addison Rae, this bad publicity just hurt her public image for a while. But honestly, this isn't anything new because these TikTokers are always getting into some kind of mess anyway. At number 5, Trisha Paytas. Trisha Paytas seems to be in some kind of drama or controversy every couple of months. Most recently, the YouTuber was caught in some drama with their former podcast co-host, Ethan Klein. The pair had a podcast called Frenemies, and honestly, the title said it all. They had beef in the past and decided to make a podcast out of it, so really the whole thing was doomed from the start. But I digress. Basically, they got into yet another fight, and Trisha decided that they needed to quit the podcast. After leaving, the quote-unquote truth started to come out about the behind-the-scenes drama regarding the podcast. Most of the conflict had to do with money and how much each person contributed to the show and whatnot. But this debate got heated, exposed videos were made, and talk show careers came to an end. Even though their career isn't completely destroyed simply because Trisha won't let it die, it wasn't good for their image or credibility, but honestly, things are always rocky with Trisha, so even if we think that their career is over, they won't think so. At number 4, Wendy Williams. With the drama surrounding Britney Spears and her conservatorship, everyone seems to want to put their 2 cents in and contribute to the conversation, and the criticisms being thrown towards Britney's family, especially her father. Most of this criticism happens on the internet from Britney's fans, but talk show host Wendy Williams took things one step further and made her comments about the situation on air of her show. She was discussing Britney's ongoing court battle with the audience, and she made comments about how Britney's parents had the public fooled into thinking that they were doing what was best for the pop star. After learning more information as to what's really been going on in that situation, we know that things are much more rocky than we once thought, and because this is so unfair for Britney, this got Wendy pretty heated because she followed up her criticisms of the Spears family by saying, quote, "Death to all of them," end quote. This comment went a little too far for people's likings, and Wendy faced backlash for it. The comment had to be edited out of the show, and there were a handful of people demanding that Wendy apologize to Britney's family for what she said. Wendy ended up getting a lot of bad press for weeks following the incident, and as we all know by now, for a celebrity, bad press is a very dangerous thing to have. At number 3, Sia. Grammy-winning artist Sia started facing pretty serious backlash following the release of her feature film Music, starring Maddie Ziegler. The film, which is about a young non-verbal girl on the autism spectrum, starred Maddie Ziegler as the film's protagonist, and even though Maddie has worked closely with Sia for many years, fans had to put their foot down and call the singer out on her casting choice. Because the role went to someone who wasn't on the autism spectrum, she started facing backlash. The singer got a chance to clear the air while doing a sit-down interview recently, but instead of owning up to everything and apologizing to fans, she instead doubled down, which really made things worse for her. While she understood the feelings of those who were angry with her, Sia defended her casting choice by saying, quote, "There's no way I could have used someone of Maddie's level of functioning to play her. I can't do a project without her," end quote. This interview, combined with her harsh defense of the film on Twitter, made for a storm of backlash, and things got so bad that she had to leave social media to avoid the scrutiny. While her career isn't necessarily over, she has lost a lot of popularity. At number 2, Mark Wahlberg. In 2013, while appearing as a guest on the Graham Norton Show, Mark Wahlberg caused quite a scene that greatly affected his public image. Essentially, Mark went through his entire guest appearance while severely under the influence, and he made quite a fool of himself. While on the show, Mark kept interrupting other guests, touching people, acting pretty disruptive, and even fell asleep on the couch. It became one interview that Graham wanted to forget because of how awkward and uncomfortable the entire experience was. This moment went down in TV history as one of the worst interviews ever simply because of how chaotic it was. In the aftermath of the whole ordeal, Mark's public image declined for a while because he made a fool of himself on TV, and not every fan is into that kind of behavior. And finally, at number 1, Joe Rogan. The pandemic and the COVID vaccines are still a very hot topic amongst many people. There are opinions from opposite sides of the spectrum, and many times uninformed people spread misinformation that can really hurt others. This is how Joe Rogan started facing backlash after he made some comments about the vaccines that were incredibly untrue and pretty damaging. On his podcast, Joe was talking about the COVID vaccines, and he made a comment saying that young people didn't need to get vaccinated, saying, quote, "If you're like 21 years old and you say to me, should I get vaccinated? I say no. If you're a healthy person and you're exercising all the time and you're young and you're eating well, I don't think you need to worry about this," end quote. His comments had to be fact-checked by one of the world's top doctors, where they went on to say that what Joe said was untrue, and that no matter what your age or health status is, it's important to consider getting vaccinated if that's best for you. Because of what Joe said, he started facing backlash, and people started calling him an anti-vaxxer. He had to set the record straight that he wasn't an anti-vaxxer, but people still don't believe him. In this day and age, your views on the pandemic and everything that comes with it can make or break you, so this backlash surely wasn't good for Joe. Now I want you guys to tell me about the worst job that you've ever had, and what made it so bad. I can't imagine a job being worse than being a celebrity because of how much drama they have to deal with on a daily basis, but there's probably a handful of other jobs out there that suck big time as well. So tell me about a job that you hated the most down in the comments.
In spot number 10 is the drama between Caitlyn Jenner and Ellen DeGeneres. It was back in 2015 when Caitlyn went on Ellen's show for an interview, and it ended with an ongoing feud between them. During the interview, Ellen asked her opinion on same-sex marriage, and Caitlyn said that there was a time in her her life that she did not support it, but now she does. Ellen fired back immediately though and made it seem like Caitlyn was saying that she does not support the LGBTQ+ community. The tension between them seemed to go past the show because Ellen talked about it on the Howard Stern show. She told Howard that Caitlyn was unfairly passing judgment about gay people and same-sex marriage. Caitlyn later came out with her side of the story and said she was not happy that Ellen painted her in that light. She claimed that she talked to Ellen on the phone prior to going on the show in the first place and that they already discussed her changing opinion on same-sex marriage. So when Ellen flipped the switch on her during the live interview, Caitlyn was really upset. Cruising into number 9 is the Wendy Williams lip drama. She caused a big stir online after she talked about the Golden Globes on her talk show. It was because she started making comments about the awards show and began talking about the Oscar-nominated actor Joaquin Phoenix. But while talking about him, she mocked the scar that he has above his lip. She said that when he shaves his mustache, he has a hairline fracture, and then she started demonstrating with her hand how his lip scar looks like a cleft lip. People were furious and said she was insensitive not only to the actor but also those who have cleft lips. Even Cher was furious and had a lot to say about it on Twitter. One of her tweets said an apology does not make up for what she did, and the other one said that she should be fired for making fun of something that is very painful for some people. Wendy did issue an apology following all the backlash, in case you're wondering, but is that enough? I don't know. She still has her job, so I guess so. In spot number 8, we have the time when Paris Hilton called out David Letterman. I did an entire list of celebrities who tried to warn us about David Letterman, so there is a handful of scandals that I could have used, but the one with Paris is what sparked the majority of them to be revealed in the first place. In 2020, Paris did a vulnerable documentary called This Is Paris, where she opened up about different times that she was belittled during interviews by other people in the industry, David being one of them. One video clip surfaced online showing him bugging her about her time in jail, which happened years before. He kept making very insensitive jokes about it, and even after she asked him to stop, he wouldn't. Paris revealed that he was purposely trying to humiliate her because he agreed not to bring up the jail thing before she even went on the show in the first place. After the clip went viral, a handful of other clips with different female celebrities surfaced, showing him belittling them and also being sexually inappropriate towards them. Taking over number 7 is Steve Harvey's note. He was making headlines in 2017 when a memo he sent off to his staff members was leaked online, showing him in a different light. People are used to seeing his very kind and goofy side, but apparently he is more entitled when he is off camera. The memo was sent from Harvey to his staff and basically told them all not to approach him. It said, "Do not come to my dressing room unless invited. Do not approach me while I'm in the makeup chair unless I ask to speak with you directly. Do not take offense to the new way of doing business." Turns out he was revamping things for season 5 of his show, and with a new crew, he wanted new rules. After the memo went viral, he decided to bail on the rap party for his own show. Probably because the staff all were terrified to even look at him. What do you guys think? Does he have a right to say that in a staff memo? Like, do you think it was too much? Do you think it's valid? Let me know. At number 6, we have James Corden facing backlash for allegedly being racist. This scandal caused a huge debate because some people felt he should be cancelled while others saw no issue with what he was doing. I will let you be your own judge. If you haven't seen his show, he does a segment called Spill Your Guts or Fill Your Guts. He fills the table with disgusting foods like cow tongue, different bugs, 1,000-year-old eggs, sardine smoothies, things like that. If his celebrity guest does not want to answer the question, they have to eat whatever is in front of them. He's been doing it for years, but this year he started taking heat after people said some of the foods that he refers to as disgusting are very common in Asian cultures. People said that the segment is culturally offensive and insensitive because many Asian Americans are consistently bullied and mocked for their native foods. James was quick to apologize though and be very understanding, saying that he will not do the segment and he will make appropriate changes to his show. We've made it halfway and we have Megyn Kelly vs. Jane Fonda. In September 2017, what started out as a normal interview led to some ongoing tension between these two ladies. They were having a normal interview which seemed to be going well until Megyn started asking Jane about aging and plastic surgery. It seemed to strike a nerve with her because she became irritated immediately and did not want to talk about it. She fired back at her saying, "We really want to talk about that now?" Then she changed the subject and began talking about her movie, Our Souls at Night. The interview just wasn't the same after that. You could feel like some awkward tension between them. Jane later joked about it months later on the Today Show, and Megyn replied by saying the actress is fixated on the exchange and said it was part of Jane's poor me routine. Things just seemed to get even worse from there. Just went on a spiral and a rant, and it's just not good. Rolling into spot number 4, we have Sharon Osbourne gets fired. Well, she was forced to step away, so you could say she kind of quit. Things turned sour quick when she went on the show and defended Piers Morgan, who gave his opinion about Meghan Markle's big interview regarding the royal family. His opinion was that he didn't believe Meghan's very serious claims. Sharon defended him, saying that he has a right to speak about his views and opinion, but that just caused issues for her because it came off like she was kind of agreeing with him. She tried to defend herself, but it ended up turning into a very heated argument between her and one of her other show hosts. The show had to cut to commercial and bleep out a bunch of F-bombs because the fight got so intense. The show was on a hiatus before it was announced that they would be moving forward without her. The show's statement said that her behavior towards her co-hosts did not align with their values for a respectful workplace. With that being said, at number 3 is Piers Morgan gets fired. You already heard the gist of what happened, but there was a lot of drama that led to him quitting the show, but media outlets say he was forced to step away. I feel like that's a nice way of saying, you're fired, I'm gonna give you opportunity to quit, if not, you're fired. He has been adored on the talk show Good Morning Britain, but then ITV announced they were getting a lot of complaints about Piers and they had to investigate them. Turns out the show received 41,000 complaints after Piers said he did not believe a word that Meghan Markle said in her Oprah Winfrey interview about the royal family. If you missed that very shocking interview, Meghan revealed how her mental health was negatively affected by the royal family and brought up certain incidents which were extremely racist and insensitive. Piers was open about the fact that he personally did not believe her claims. He ended up walking away from the show, which seemed to be a mutual agreement with the network either way, because they could not defend or protect his comments. Moving on to number 2, we have Jimmy Kimmel's insensitive comment. During one of his episodes in 2013, he offended the Chinese community around the world after making an insensitive joke. During one of his segments, a child suggested that harming everyone in China as a solution to dealing with America's growing debt. Jimmy responded to it by saying, "That's an interesting idea." The statement enraged a lot of people, even if it was meant to be a joke or sarcasm, and people online were demanding an apology from him. Eventually, Jimmy released a statement saying, "I thought it was obvious that I didn't agree with that statement, but apparently it wasn't. So I just want to say I am sorry, I apologize. It was certainly not my intent to upset anyone." I feel like he just chose to use sarcasm at a very bad time. Like, sarcasm either hits or it misses. Earning the number 1 spot is the feud between Dakota Johnson and Ellen DeGeneres. This has gone down as one of the most iconic and cringeworthy moments in talk show history. In 2019, a feud sparked between the two of them after Dakota went on her show to do an interview. At the time, they had already had this ongoing debate on whether or not Ellen had been invited to her birthday party. In 2018, Dakota admitted she did not invite Ellen because she didn't know if she would want to be invited, so in 2019, she did invite her. But Ellen did not show up to the party and also did not give any explanation why. So when Dakota went on her talk show, Ellen brought it up and accused her of not inviting her to her birthday again. The tension was immediately super uncomfortable as Dakota starts bringing other people into it. She said, I quote, Actually, no, that's not the truth, Ellen. Ask everybody. Ask Jonathan, your producer. She literally then points to the producer and calls him out during the interview. The producer revealed that she was in fact invited, and then it was super awkward because Ellen didn't even say why she didn't go, and then the audience just had to sit there and watch the whole thing unfold.
At number 10, Hugh Grant. You don't really hear too much about Hugh Grant these days, so when I found out that he was banned from somewhere, I was actually pretty shocked. He was banned from The Daily Show after having a really bad interview that affected the show's host. Jon Stewart, the former host of The Daily Show, said in an interview that Hugh Grant was the absolute worst guest he'd ever had on the show. He spoke about how when Hugh was on to promote his film Did You Hear About the Morgans, Hugh was making a huge scene backstage and was really mean and annoying to the people who were working on set. Apparently, Hugh was allegedly going around saying that he had better places to be. He also got really upset about the clip that they played from the film, saying, quote, "What is that clip? It is a terrible clip." To which Jon replied, telling Hugh to make a better movie. You could really tell that Jon was fed up with Hugh and his attitude on the show. Jon went on to say that because of his poor experience with Hugh, he would never have him back on his show. At number 9, Kathy Griffin. Kathy Griffin is known for being pretty outspoken and controversial at times, and it's because of her antics that she's been banned from just about every talk show. Because of her unpredictable actions, use of crude language, and her problematic past, she isn't welcome on shows like The View, The Today Show, Ellen, Regis and Kelly, Jay Leno, Letterman, and many others. She's racked up a lot of these bans over the years, but some new ones, like being fired from CNN, come from the backlash that she gained after the Donald Trump incident where she posed with a fake bloodied model of Donald Trump's head. She's been known to ruffle people's feathers on live TV and pull stunts that are inappropriate for broadcast. For example, during her time hosting the New Year's Eve special with Anderson Cooper on CNN, she used profanity and even removed some of her clothing on TV. On top of that, she's offended people during award shows while making speeches and making inappropriate comments. Though she's been banned from certain TV shows, I really think that people just want her banned from the media in general because of her actions. Now, before I carry on talking about more celebrities banned from late night programs, I would first like to take a moment to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, because it really helps the channel out and we appreciate you guys supporting our platform. At number 8, Harmony Korine. I think it's common knowledge, at least to most people, that when you're a guest somewhere, you should try and be on your best behavior. Most people follow this unspoken rule, but many others don't, especially celebrities, as we will see throughout this list. One person who really should have tried to behave themselves is director Harmony Korine, who's best known for the movie Spring Breakers. There was once a time when Harmony made a number of appearances on The Late Show with David Letterman in the mid to late 90s. This was also during a time when Harmony was reportedly on a lot of drugs. Though he was a frequent guest on the show, his appearances just stopped all of a sudden and no one really knew why until 2013 when Letterman revealed the truth as to why the director was banned from coming on the show. Apparently, Letterman caught the director going through Meryl Streep's purse one time, and that was just the last straw for the late night host. When talking about this fateful event, Letterman said, quote, "I went upstairs to greet Meryl Streep and welcome her to the show. I knocked on the door and she wasn't there. I looked around and found Harmony going through her purse. True story. And so I said, that's it, put her things back in her bag and then get out." End quote. After that, Harmony was no longer welcome on the show and has not been back since. At number 7, Bobcat Goldthwait. I think that this goes without saying, but don't go setting fire to random things. I know Adele said set fire to the rain, but that was just a metaphor. Clearly though, one guest on Jay Leno didn't quite get the memo because they ended up setting a fire during their interview on The Late Night Show. Back in 1994, actor Bobcat Goldthwait was a guest on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and during his guest appearance, the actor decided to randomly set fire to his chair. At the time, Jay thought that this was just a spontaneous bit, but in reality, Bobcat came prepared for this as he brought lighter fluid and a lighter that was hidden up his sleeve. Luckily, the other guest who was there that night, Lauren Hutton, was quick on her feet and doused the flames with a cup of water. Jay, understandably, was very unhappy with all this and banned Bobcat from the show. Not only that, but the actor was also charged with arson for his stunt and was ordered to pay over $3,300 in fines, some of which went towards replacing the chair that he set fire to. Not too sure why he decided to make this interview go up in flames like that, but at least he won't be able to pull that stunt again. At least not with Jay. At number 6, Dax Shepard. Actor and comedian Dax Shepard has been very open about his struggles with substance abuse for some time now. He's opened up about some of the lowest points in his career that was caused by his substance abuse, including one time that got him banned from a late night show. Dax told the story about how he was once preparing to be on Late Night with Conan O'Brien in 2004, but when he was doing the pre-interview, he blacked out. Dax didn't remember any of the pre-interview where he was supposed to go over over the talking points for the evening, and by the time his real interview started, he was so lost. He went into detail saying, quote, "I show up on the show and I don't know what he's talking about. I can tell he's queuing me up for stories I've told, but I don't know any of the stories," end quote. Because of how badly he messed up his interview, he was banned from the show for a few years until he got sober. Years later, he was welcomed back on the show and all was forgiven, but it was still a low point for the actor. At number 5, Jay Leno. This next ban was caused by one serious feud between Jay Leno and Conan O'Brien. Because both men were talented late night hosts, there were a lot of pitches from different networks trying to poach one or the other to take over talk shows and whatnot. Well, things got kind of heated when Conan was promised the hosting gig for The Tonight Show when Jay's contract was up. As you would imagine, Jay didn't take the news very well, and so he decided to start his own show, The Jay Leno Show, which aired before Conan's. Well, when neither of their shows were bringing in good ratings, the network reshuffled the time slots, gave Conan's slot to Jay, and bumped Conan's show back half an hour. Conan didn't like that, took a payout, and The Tonight Show fell back into Jay's hands. Later on, when asked if he would have Jay on an episode of his show, Conan shut that down, essentially saying that Jay would have been banned from his program. There was just a lot of bitterness between them, and the water under that bridge has certainly dried up. At number 4, Gary Busey. A lot of people enjoy their personal space. I know that there are many people who love getting close to others and who are very physical people, but you know, not everybody likes that. Getting upset when someone invades your personal space without permission is pretty understandable, and this notion is what got Gary Busey banned from the Howard Stern Show. Back in 2001, actor Gary Busey was on the Howard Stern Show and seemed to have ignored the notion of personal space, and that rubbed Howard the wrong way. While on the show, the actor picked up Howard's co-host, Robin Quivers, giving him a big bear hug, and even chased Howard around the studio trying to wrestle him. Howard really didn't like what Gary was doing that day, and so he promptly banned him from coming back on the show. When Gary explained the motives behind his actions, he blamed it on his quote, 13 separate personalities. He continued to say that he was just really excitable that day, but that wasn't a good enough excuse to get him back onto the show until 2017, when he was invited to do an audio-only interview with Howard. At number 3, Howard Stern. But speaking of Howard Stern, he himself has been banned from a late night show. Apparently, he and Jay Leno have had beef ever since Howard's 1995 appearance on The Tonight Show. This appearance was pretty chaotic. Howard entered onto the show with 2 women in bikinis and prompted the women to start kissing each other on air. On top of that, Howard kept speaking over Jay and other guests while on the show as well. Jay was apparently so fed up with Howard and his antics that he nearly walked off set, and was so mad about the way that the show turned out that evening that he later called into Howard's show to say that he had, quote, gone beyond the acceptable standards. After that, Howard was banned, and he and Jay have had beef ever since. At number 2, Donald Trump. Now, to find out that Donald Trump has been banned from any kind of talk show really isn't all that surprising. So many hosts from various shows have banned the former president, but this next ban is a little juicier because it kind of involves some beef between the Donald and late night host Seth Meyers. In 2016, the late night talk show host issued a ban against Donald Trump in retaliation for Trump having revoked Seth's Washington Post credentials. Though it was an official ban, it was also done as a joke since Seth already knew that Donald would never be on a show anyway, but it was about the principle. In a joke statement to Donald, Seth said, quote, "We instituted this ban despite the fact that he's never been here or asked to be here or would never be caught dead here. I just think that it takes an amazing amount of courage on our part. So the ball is in your court, Donald. Either rescind your Washington Post ban or you're not allowed to appear on the show you have no interest in appearing on. Although maybe now that you can't have it, you're changing your mind." End quote. And finally, at number 1, Oprah Winfrey. This last ban seems to have been more so self-imposed. After making an appearance on David Letterman's show in 1989, Oprah Winfrey issued a self-imposed ban, refusing to go back on Letterman's show. After what she experienced on the show, Oprah and Letterman seem to have had some kind of feud going on, though it was more low-key than others. As for what happened to cause this self-imposed ban, well, Oprah finally opened up about the event that caused this back in 2013, saying, quote, "It was a terrible experience for me. The guy in the audience started yelling, 'Get her, Dave.' You were sort of baiting the audience and there were a bunch of drunk guys down the front. I was trying to mitigate the whole thing. It felt so uncomfortable for me. I didn't want to have that experience again." End quote. Basically, she was just really uncomfortable on the show and wanted to forget about the event, hence her minor beef with the late night host, and she just didn't want a repeat of that unpleasant experience. Now, before I wrap things up today, I want you guys to leave a comment down below telling me if there was any late night or regular talk show that you would love to be on, which would it be and why? There are so many to choose from, so let me know which one you would choose down in the comments. Anyways, that's it for me. I've been your host, Bria Room, and until next time, stay safe, make good choices, and stay groovy, friends.